I'm Clay Clark, and thank you for joining me for Fireside Chat number 9 with Lynn Wood. And on today's Fireside Chat, I ask Lynn some tough questions, including what the heck happened to the 2020 elections? Where are all the arrests? Is there any reason for hope at all? And then after I ask Lynn my tough questions, I begin to ask Lynn Wood the questions that you are asking, the questions that you want the answers to, including where should we go to find the truth if we can't trust the mainstream media? Why would he give us false hope? One of you asked the question, why would he give us false hope? Is there a storm actually coming by the military, or was that all just hype? Sean, I asked Lynn some tough questions on today's show, and then you asked him some tough questions too.
I did, and he had great answers for us.
Folks, if you're listening to today's show and you want to see cited proof of any of the things that Lynn Wood says on today's show, simply text the word truth. Again, text the word truth to 918-552-5142. That's 918-552-5142. And when you text that number, as hundreds and hundreds of thousands of you have, we will share with you the facts related to today's show. So again, just text the word truth to 918-552-5142. However, we are getting so many text messages that the system cannot keep up from time to time. So please be patient, but just text the word truth to 918-552-5142. And then on part 2 of today's show, Charlene Bollinger joins us to interview. Check this out. Charlene Bollinger, the co-founder of The Truth About Cancer, she joins us to feature all on one show. Dave, the host of the X22 Report. Mike Adams from Health Ranger is on today's show. Zach Voorhees, the big tech whistleblower. Pastor Greg Locke, Lori Gregory, Pastor Dave Scarlett from His Glory, Pastor Brian Gibson, the host of the SGT Report podcast, and she lowered the standards for this one. Charlene Bollinger featured me by asking me questions right here on the Thrive Time Show. So you're going to love today's show. And then on part 3 of today's show, we're going to feature an audio from Paul Harvey, the late, great radio host, where he talks about how America could be destroyed by laxing our moral standards, by destroying the family unit, and by embracing all-out communism. Now, this audio was recorded years ago, and it is so accurate. I mean, it describes with 100% accuracy what is going on right now in America. And then we interview my good friend Ian Smith, who has a gym based in New Jersey. I'm sure everybody's seen his gym on the news. You've probably seen it in the media. But Ian Smith, the co-owner of the Attilas Gym in New Jersey, has now been fined $1.7 million for committing the crime of opening his business. He's getting fined $15,497.76 per day for opening his business. And the government just seized $173,000 out of his bank account for committing the crime of opening his business. That's the Attilas Gym in New Jersey. We have an action-packed show for you. You're going to want to grab a pen and a pad as we enter into the lab. And I encourage you to wrestle with all the information that we're sharing. Look it up, verify the facts, because only the truth shall set us free. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show and the 9th Fireside Chat with attorney Lynn Wood. All right, Thrive Nation, here we are. The U.S. election has taken place, and many of you have sent me a text message that said WTF. Now, I won't translate what that means, I'm sure that everybody meant what the fun stuff is happening over there. Other people have sent me text that says, where are all the arrests? I'm getting and then is hope lost? And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to interview a man who I consider to be my friend, a man who is an attorney, and a man who has made claims that he has seen some of the content on the Hunter Biden laptop, and then that content actually made its way around the internet, and many of you saw it too. A man who has made claims that there was widespread election fraud, and many of you have read Sidney Powell's report documenting the election fraud. Documenting it and showcasing the election fraud. However, the facts have been on our side, but it would appear to many of you that all hope is lost. And so with that wind up there, Lynn Wood, welcome back onto the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Well, Clay, I'm doing fine. I mean, there's a lot of flack coming in, but I'm holding up well, and a lot of that's because of my wonderful messages I received from many of your listeners and others, and primarily because I love God and I know that He's with me, and He gives me hope, and He tells me and teaches me that He only works for good, and while He does it on His timing and not mine, I have confidence in God and I have faith in God, so that we're going to all be okay, even if we're going to have some difficult days ahead.
Well, what I wanted to do, and I'm not at all comparing you, for anybody out there, calm down. I'm not comparing, Lynn, you to Martin Luther King Jr. I'm not comparing you to Jesus, and I'm not comparing you to Paul, but I am bringing up three examples of people that Martin Luther King Jr. thought that people should be judged based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Jesus was murdered at the age of 33, crucified for sharing the good news. Paul was beaten 39 times on 5 separate occasions, and then he got to write 13 books of the Bible while in prison as a result of being a disciple of Christ. And so many people listening right now are experiencing persecution for the first time in their lives. They've been on Facebook sharing Linwood interviews and facts, and they're sharing all this, and now their friends are like, see, I told you. So I guess my first question for you is, what happened with the election, and what is happening with the election?
Well, let me preface my answer by first picking up on what you just talked about. The Bible teaches us without question that if you follow Jesus Christ, you shall be persecuted. Not maybe, you shall be. Every persecution is finite. You don't ask why. You just basically say, God, what do you want me to do with this? And at the end, you'll usually find that it was a blessing in disguise. You'll get closer to God. Maybe your family will get closer to God. Maybe a stranger will come to God. So suffer through the persecution. It's not it's not unexpected. In fact, you're told that's what will happen. Now, what happened to the election? Trump won. He won a landslide, I think historic landslide election. He knows that. That's why he's never conceded. What's going on now? You said something about it appears that we've got Biden. It appears that Trump has given up. Let me go back and say simple truths are simple truth. Appearances can be deceptive. I believe that we have right now an illegitimate government. I think we have to realize that communism has taken over our country without firing a shot, and they've now installed an alleged administration that is essentially controlled by Communist China through money, through blackmail, and through other mechanisms where communists get control of you. So I think that while I felt like this would be resolved earlier, while I fully at times have expected to see arrest because serious laws have been broken by many, we got to remember that we don't work on our time. We have to wait on the Lord, and it's His timing that will take place. The events that people want to see today or yesterday or in 2 days, in a week, while we want them and we can anticipate them and we feel like there should be action taken, those events, from my view spiritually, are not going to occur 1 second before or 1 second later than God has planned for them to occur. Do I believe there will be arrest? Yes. Can I tell you when? Well, I've tried to give you information that would point in a certain time period. I haven't turned out to be right all the time. Timing is not my forte, apparently. But will I ultimately find that I believe what I'm saying will happen? I think if you give time to this, you'll find out that I'm right. So that there will be arrest. The fake administration that we're undergoing right now will not stand. So you could stop and say, well, why in the world don't we just move in? I think that the people that are running our government want to avoid at all cost a civil war, so that if action is taken now, people will say, well, Trump's trying to take over the government, and there'll be this planned insurrection by BLM and Antifa, stuff financed by George Soros and others. So they'll try to divide us. I think they're trying to buy time to lessen the chances of that type of Civil War type violence occurring. Whether they'll be able to successfully avoid it, I have my doubts, but I'm not the person making the decisions right now. But I do believe that if we can stay steady, stay calm, obey the rule of law, stay true to our constitutional principles, that in the end, we're going to find that justice and truth prevail. Even if it's not when we want it to happen, ultimately the goal is not when, but just the fact that it does happen. That's what's essential. We're talking about the long-term survivability of freedom in this country. If it takes a little while longer to wait on it, once again, simple truth's a simple truth. It'll be well worth the wait.
You know, we had a listener that emailed in some intelligent questions, and I really feel like these are one. I have many questions from listeners, so I'm going to fire through kind of my inbox here of questions. Question number one from the listener is, who's actually in charge here? There's a lot of rumors that the military is in control. There's a lot of rumors that the Biden administration is in control. And this listener wants to know who is actually in charge there.
God. Now, that's in the spiritual world, and
Okay.
I think that's the truth. But now you want to move into the real world, which is essentially a lie. So you've got what appears to be, I think, a shadow government, an illegitimate government. Biden's in charge. You've got Donald Trump, who has followed the law to the letter, has not done anything to interfere with the constitutional processes of this country. He cannot be accused of taking any unlawful actions that somehow caused a coup or contributed to a coup. And then you've got the military. I think if people will do their research, they will find that back in the 50s, when communism was first really seen as a threat in the McCarthy era, a flawed man, but he understood communism, I think you'll find that laws were enacted consistent with our Constitution that gave America protection against an illegitimate government coming into power through the insidious communism that creeps in when you're not paying attention or creeps in and you don't see it. So if you ask me, do I know who's in charge? No, I know I'm not. I know God is. But in the terms of the three choices, I believe that the rule of law is being followed, and it's my belief that the military is in charge of this country right now.
Now,
and has been since 12 o'clock noon on January the 20th.
And you believe that? And for anybody out there that says, how can you prove that? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to look at the applicable laws. I would tell them to look at what's going on with the inauguration. Why was Biden sworn in almost, I believe, 17 minutes early? Every inauguration, the swearing in occurs at 12:01 p.m. Why was it early? Why did one friend tell me they saw one of the singers, maybe it was Lady Gaga in her Hunger Games outfit, be introduced, and then on another channel, she was finishing her song? Why does a man tell us publicly that he saw the inauguration 10 hours before it was supposed to be showing live in America? He saw it in Spain.
Now,
was anybody in Washington, D.C. that saw that inaugural ceremony take place? I think there's some concerns about whether we saw a fake inauguration that had been videotaped to Hollywood production that was disguised as a real inauguration. I know that it wasn't done on time. I know there were other things that you could pick up with a discerning eye that would raise questions about when it was done and whether it was artificial or real.
Now, Lynn, I on just an emotional basis, you know, when I found out my dad had cancer, that was not a positive experience. When I found out he then, after fighting his battle with cancer and defeating cancer, or the medication defeating cancer, God beating cancer, he then had Lou Gehrig's disease. I found out he had Lou Gehrig's disease.
Wow.
And I felt the way When I found out for the first time that my dad had cancer, I felt really bad. But when I found out he had beat cancer to then find out he had Lou Gehrig's disease, that's probably the low point of how I have ever felt as a human. Then maybe tied for that was I was in college. My best friend, I've known him forever. My roommate, we were best buddies since we were like kids in diapers. We were roommates in college, and he died in a car accident. Just he was supposed to be hanging out with me that night, and I found out I came home from DJing an event. I used to be a disc jockey. I came home from an event, and every guy on the dorm, there's probably 30 guys, 35 guys, and they're all looking at me, and I'm going, this is pre-cell phone, before people would call each other on the cell phone. And I'm like, what's going on? And they say, I remember Adam told my friend Adam, he said, your roommate's dead, and he didn't have anything else to say. I just remember saying, and I feel like that's kind of how America feels right now. I don't think there's, and I feel like people are saying, we know, and I'll put it on the show notes so people can see. I think people know that Peter T. Gaynor was put in charge of FEMA on January 14th, 2020. I'll put a link on today's show notes. I think people know that FEMA is a very powerful organization, more powerful than the Constitution, people might say. Peter Gaynor has served in the Marines for 26 years. Peter Gaynor was put in office on January 14th. He's a freedom-loving American. People know that Christopher Miller was put in to be the acting Secretary of Defense by President Trump on November 9th, 2020. They know that. They know that Christopher Miller was put in charge of the D.C. National Guard. People know that Ezra Cohen Watnick, a pupil, a man who was mentored by General Flynn, was put in to be the acting right hand of Christopher C. Miller on November 10th. People know that President Trump's last tweet referenced the phrase giant voice. And they know that the American Signal product, the military mass notification system, is called Giant Voice. People know these facts. People know that General Thomas McInerney said that he believes that he actually saw with his own eyes the laptop that the special forces had seized from Nancy Pelosi. So people have all those facts, but then they didn't see the acts that they were certain were going to happen. And I was just certain when my dad got cured of cancer, Lynn, that it was going to be good. And then right when I knew it was going to be good, I had all the facts. We had the facts. He was cleared of cancer. Then here comes Lou Gehrig's disease. How should American Christians be processing this from your perspective? How should we emotionally be dealing with this?
Well, I'm sure that to many people, they're literally in what I would call a state of shock because they were expecting truth to prevail, and it hasn't prevailed yet. The game's not over. What I would say from a Christian standpoint is that just like when your father suffered the cancer and then came back and suffered the Lou Gehrig's disease, you don't ask God why. Because he's told us in the Bible that when he makes a plan for your life, he knows things of which you will never know. Mm. So on a bigger scale, when you look over and say, when I said God's in control, I believe without a doubt he is. And you say, well, God, why aren't we getting a rest? Why is this happening? You don't ask God why. Mm. Because he knows things of which you will never know when he made the plan for this nation. The question you need to ask is, God, what do you want me to do with this? Think about it that way.
Okay.
I think God will tell you with respect to what's going on in the country that he wants you to stay calm. He wants you to trust him, knowing that if you wait on the Lord, eventually he will work for good. America needs to wake up. Many people in our country still do not know about the massive evidence that supports the conclusion that's unescapable that this was a fraudulent election. Surprisingly, many countries and citizens in other countries around the world, they know it happened, but they're not living where the truth has been censored by the media. We're undergoing censorship. I was warning people about it on Twitter months ago. I could see it increasing slowly but surely. Well, boy, they put the accelerator down now, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
Because in a revolution, first they want to suppress your speech. Then part of that in the First Amendment is your freedom of religion. They're going to come after your religion. They're going to come after your politics. They're going to come after your Second Amendment rights because they don't want you to have a gun to fight an insurgency or a resistance. Then they're going to come after your due process. They're going to put the people that disagree with the new leaders, the people that took over our country, they're going to put you in jail. They're going to take away your right to a jury trial. They're going to make you summarily be imprisoned or executed. Those aren't speculation in terms of the facts. That's how it has done and been done historically in other countries where there has been a color revolution. That's what's been happening to America. So what I would say is trust the Lord. Make sure you do the right things. Obey the law. Don't give them some chance to say that you're violating the law and then lower yourself to their standards because they are violating the law. Stay true to the Constitution. Follow its principles. Don't stoop to their level where they are engaged in acts of treason against our country and our Constitution.
Sean Lohman is a guy in the office here who's been here for a while. And, Sean, how long have you worked in the office there, man?
I've been working for Clay Stairs for about 4 years.
So 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
And you're new to the Christian team, is that right?
Yeah. And
how new are you to the Christian team?
Like a few, well, let's just say the night of the 19th, I decided to make the leap of faith either into what was going to be very, very bad persecution or a very, very awesome story. And so that's happening right now.
Okay, Lynn, so we have a new man who's been, the events of this year have awakened Sean to a lot of things.
Yes.
And I think when Sean first heard that the Dominion Company, the vote counting machine, shared office space with George Soros in Toronto, I think his head almost exploded. I think when he saw that Eric Coomer, the head of strategy and security for Dominion, is an outspoken Antifa member, I think when he saw that the software that's used was Sequoia Smartmatic was founded by the communists in Venezuela, I think I just would watch Sean's head just, what? What is going? I think your head almost exploded, and that got him right into a relationship with Christ. Now, that being said, I told Sean, I said, Sean, you can write some questions that you want to ask Lynn. And so, Lynn, I'm going to let her rip here. Let's see what Sean has to ask you.
Okay. All right, Lynn. So I've got 4 of them here for you. All right. And the first one is on the subject of Nesara Jessara. Okay, I've been deep in the trenches of looking at alternative media here, so I'm now talking to a lawyer who is credible. This is supposedly called the National Economic Security and Recovery Act, or in the Global Economic Security and Recovery Act. You can go find it at nesarahelp.org. Jessarahelp.org. But this is, Lynn, correct me here if I'm wrong or jump in if you need to, but apparently this is a piece of legislation that was signed into law by President William Jefferson Clinton in 1993. And according to a petition I found on change.org calling for the announcement of this, it should have been announced on September 11th, 2001 at 10 a.m.
Real quick, Lynn, just before you ask the question, do you believe that is real, sir?
Is that real?
I don't know the facts in terms of dates and Clinton and the fact that it was supposed to go into effect on September 11th of 2001, I believe you said.
Yeah.
But I do believe that the law is real. I do believe the law is necessary for the long-term survival of our country from an economic standpoint and, more importantly, from a freedom standpoint where you return government to the people. So I do believe that Donald Trump will, in fact, I've heard it called Nasaris and Jasaris, I believe also, but I believe that he will enact that. Now, again, I'm not a historian, but my general knowledge tells me that around 1912, America defaulted on its notes. And the bank, the Rothschild Bank, which is now known as the Federal Reserve Bank, not owned by America, essentially, because we defaulted, took over our financial system. We had to bank through the Federal Reserve. They've been issuing all the money, paper money, eventually not backed by gold, not backed by silver, but backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. So it's almost like unsecured debt. And they've been printing it faster than they can make paper. And we are now one of the most we're a debtor country. And it strangles us. The interest strangles us. The control the Federal Reserve has over it strangles us. So when they formed and went into the relationship in the 1912 or thereabouts, we became the United States of America Incorporated, Inc. That was the entity that signed away the rights to the monetary system to the Federal Reserve or the Rothschilds. What I believe is that, in effect, put it in simple terms, Trump was always criticized because he had bankrupted two companies, and he said, hey, it was allowed by law, and it helped survive the companies so they could flourish again. And everybody criticized him about it. I believe that Donald Trump is going to bankrupt this country, the United States of America, Inc.
Now,
and
real
everybody's
quick,
going to say that's the smartest thing he's ever done.
Now, real quick,
What happens,
Lynn, I want to
happens
ask you.
then is,
Lynn, I want to ask you real quick. I'm so sorry. I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
You just said the United States of America, Inc., and I have never spoken to you about this. That's an honest thing. You and I have never talked about the United States of America, Inc., ever. I know about this, and therefore I know you're not crazy. But could you explain what that is real quick, sir? So sorry to cut you off. I just know somebody just had their mind blown.
Well, and that was my next question, too,
Okay,
so I'd love to hear that.
So, Lynn, can you tell us about the United States of America, Inc.?
Well, before we incorporated, in order to take this transaction when we defaulted on our debt, we were the United States of America, the Republic. And since that time, we've been, in fact, doing our financial system through the Federal Reserve as the United States of America, Inc., a corporation. And that corporation can be bankrupted because we are spending more than we are bringing in. That's an element of bankruptcy. Our debt is greater than our assets. That's another element, either one of which would allow you to declare bankruptcy. So what happens? Just like in an individual, if you declare bankruptcy, you got to pay your secured creditors with the security, but your unsecured creditors get in line. Well, let me tell you something. We've been printing so much money, we'd never be able to pay it back. So what happens? One of the big things that would happen is, who is one of our biggest creditors? Who owns a lot of our debt? China. If we bankrupt against China, the Chinese economy, which is already very fragile because of the America First policies instituted by President Trump, their economy will implode. What happens? Maybe the result of that is the Communist Chinese Party loses power and China returns to a country where the people of China take it back over. That's a real threat to China. It's a threat to the Communist Party of China. So they will pull out all stops to prevent their destruction. They'll pull out all stops to prevent Donald Trump from taking an action that is absolutely essential for the long-term survivability of America, the United States of America, the Republic. So I believe that if things go, hopefully they do go to someone's plan. It's not mine. But I'd like to see President Trump come back and serve as the 19th president of the United States of America, the Republic, because that's the number that would apply if we went back in time to when we became Inc., back when we made the deal with the Rothschilds. I think we'd have an economy going back to the gold standard where our currency had value, not just paper. I think we would go back and we would find ourselves where you didn't have to have an income tax, where you could have a 17%, let's say, consumption tax, where the government would be able to help some of the people that might be harmed by the financial transaction in terms of mortgages or savings lost. We'd become once again a nation of economic prosperity, not a debtor nation. We'd be a debt-free nation, and our economy can generate the income to pay the bills. We got to run it like a business. You can't spend more than you make. Our assets in this country are great. The gold reserves, sufficient for the time being, but look what would happen. If we go through with the executive order from President Trump that he put into effect in 2018, all foreign countries who interfered in our election, all of the American companies that interfered in our election, all of the individuals who interfered in our election, the government has the right to confiscate their assets. Now you see why America can be financially not only solvent, but financially well off to take care of the needs of this country and to still be able, where there's needs around the world, to help others. So it amounts to returning our country back to the people, getting it out of the hands of the Federal Reserve, Rothschild family, getting it out of the hands of these politicians, career politicians who are in there for money that allow the system to continue because they get money when they appropriate and give money away, money that we can't afford because it's printed paper. So now you see why we're dealing with something much bigger than Biden versus Trump. In fact, what we're really dealing with is good versus evil.
Now, listener here writes, and again, I won't keep you super long today. I got about 10 more minutes of questions I wanted to ask you, and I really do appreciate your time. A listener wrote, "Why did you give us false hope? Why did you?" And Lynn, because they wrote you, I have to assume they meant me. That way they're not asking you. But they said, please ask Lynn, why did you give us false hope? So I think they're saying, Lynn, tell me why Clay Clark is an idiot. I think that's what they're doing. I'm sure, surely they're not attacking you. So they said, please ask Lynn, why did you give us false hope? So I don't know. I think that's directed at me, but maybe you could answer that question. Why did you give us false hope, sir?
Listen, I've seen the accusations against me and that somehow I'm responsible for the alleged death of the young lady in Congress. I'm responsible for the destruction of Parler. I'm responsible for Biden being in office and no arrest. Listen, you and I, Clay, we're not the government. We're not in charge.
Right.
What we try to do is we try to look at credible information that appears to be truthful, passes the test of credibility, and we provide that information so that people can be informed. Now, they can look at those facts and draw their own conclusions. We have, and I know I have, tried to draw conclusions to try to give people some sense of where we're heading. Again, my timing has not been good at all. I'm imperfect. But I wasn't trying to give false hope. I was trying to maintain hope so that people didn't feel a sense of it's over, we lost. I don't think it's over. I think there is every reason under the facts as we know them to maintain hope, to keep a steady hand on the wheel, ride through the storm to get over on the other side safely. So it makes me feel bad when I tell people get ready for a blackout or prepare to get food ready and stuff, and nothing happens. It dings my credibility. So people say, well, he's crying wolf. Well, I'd rather be safe than sorry. If I've got information that I believe justifies the warning, I'd rather give it and be ridiculed for being wrong than to not give it and turn out that it was right. So I think that as long as people look at our motives and they're good, they ought to cut us a little slack and be patient, because in the end, it doesn't really matter whether our timing or analysis is correct. It just matters that the American public stay in the game, keep their heads about them, and take it one day at a time. Do the best you can each day. You don't worry about tomorrow. Jesus said it's take care of itself. He's telling you that's because it's planned. There's nothing you can do about it. And the future is planned. So if we focus on trying to do God's will one day at a time, we will be able to weather the storm. Because if you're in a really bad storm in a boat, you want to look up and see Jesus Christ at the helm, right. You know you're going to get through that safely, don't you?
Lynn, a listener asked this question. I'm going to read it to you. We have political leaders resigning everywhere. And I took the time to put links to all of the specific resignations they were referring to. But they said, we have political leaders resigning everywhere. What's going on? And they put a link to where you can see the entire Russian government was resigning. The Netherlands government was resigning. Kuwait's government resigns. Estonia. I haven't talked about Estonia on this show in a long time. In fact, ever. Estonia. The Italian government is on the verge of collapse. Germany's Angela Merkel's would-be successor resigns. Lynn, what is going on with all these resignations?
We tend to look at our religion and sometimes isolate it to the United States. God created the world, and the world is all interrelated. What you're seeing is you had George Soros wanting the Great Reset, one world government. In the same analogy that you could draw between Christ and Antichrist, I think we are undergoing the Great Reset, except God is going to flip the switch in the opposite direction from the direction George Soros wanted it to go in, where he would have done it for evil. God's going to have somebody in the head of this world, God, that's going to be for good. I've used the term the second harvest. And I've said before, I'll say it again, at least from my spiritual analysis, God has on his calendar the second harvest, which he promised would occur before Jesus comes again. The devil, who doesn't know the future, is trying to figure out where God's going. He's thinking, well, maybe he's going for the second harvest. So the devil tries to speed up tribulation, the Antichrist, the mark of the beast. In the end, remember that God is in control. God has all the power. The devil has none. God's going to look over and say, hey, devil, get off my calendar. I control it. It's not time for tribulation. This is the time for the second harvest. So I think the world is going to see some difficult days that are going to be resolved at some point in the near future, where people are going to realize once again that God is real, just like they realized when the first harvest began, when Jesus rose from the dead and returned 3 times on earth. The second harvest is going to occur. I think this world is going to go back to closer to what God created it to be. It was a place for the people. So you're seeing in other countries situations develop where the people will potentially be back in control of their country. Same thing I believe will happen to America. So God is at work, and I think that's why we have to sit back and realize, well, we can't fix America right away because God's got other pieces of the puzzle to put into place. People will say, well, God didn't answer my prayers. He always answers the prayers of a believer, but he does it on his time, because for him to answer your prayer, it may require that he deal with several other people or events. When he deals with those, then he will answer your prayer. That's why we have to wait on the Lord and trust him.
Amen. Sean, we have time for one more question from you, my friend, and we have one more question from another listener.
Amen. Okay. So you already talked a little bit about the McCarthy era and the legislation that they put in place there. Many of us know, as Clay has been sending out texts and talking about the executive order that President Trump put in on Monday, ensuring democratic accountability with rulemaking. So I guess, how do you see those things? I mean, here in the natural, if you were the strategist, Lynn, I'm sure you've put a lot of thought into this sort of thing, but how do you see those particular things like laying out over the next coming days and weeks?
Well, again, if you don't mind me letting me preface my remarks by saying this. The military is nonpartisan. The military doesn't owe its allegiance to Biden. It does not owe its allegiance to Trump. The military takes an oath to preserve and protect and defend the people of America and our Constitution. So if the military is in charge, it's not Trump, it's not Biden, it's the military doing their duty that they put their lives on and the line for every day to protect the people of this country. So we need to trust them. They may be the one institution right now that Americans do trust. I know there's been discussions about, well, some generals on the Joint Chiefs of Staff signed something that said they like Biden over Trump. Don't dispute that. I'm sure there's partisanship in the military. But if those military leaders, and more importantly, those military troops, live up to their oath, and they do, they don't care whether it's Biden or Trump. They're going to protect the people. And that's why I think that if the military is in charge, as I believe it is, people should be secure in that knowledge that they're going to do what's right and necessary to preserve our Constitution and to protect the people of this country. How's it going to play out? I think they're having to walk a tightrope. They want to take action. They know who the wrongdoers are. They know the crimes they've committed. The evidence is in place. But they've got to be careful to pull the trigger on that at a time where you minimize the opposition's plan, which is to create civil unrest in our cities, because if we're divided, we're weak. if we're divided and weak, that's when China may come in to actually try to physically take over our country, which may not, I believe, be avoidable. But we want to be sure we've taken the time to be prepared for it. You know, I don't play cards, but I played a little bit enough to know, and I do this in litigation. If you only know your side, you don't know the other side, you're going to fail most of the time.
Yeah.
If you play your cards, you don't play the other person's cards, you're not going to win at poker. So we've got to figure out what they've got. We don't want to expose our cards. We don't want to play our hand until we need to. Let them play their hand. I think that's what's underway here. I think that we've got some brilliant people that run the military. They're getting input from other brilliant people. We've got people that love this country in the right spots. You mentioned some of them at FEMA and and Chris Miller. You got to, at some point, decide who to trust. And it's hard right now. People are having difficulty figuring out who to trust. At the end of the day, I've said this before, well, they don't want to trust you, Clay. Now they don't want to trust me. They don't. Now people are mad at Trump. I don't want to trust Trump anymore. Listen, at the end of the day, maybe the lesson we're learning is that you can't trust any one man. You can only trust God. When God gets you to realize that, there's your great awakening. There's your reset. There's your second harvest.
You know, one thing I've talked to listeners about, to the point where I feel like somehow, Lynn, I feel like I'm a very low paid, just like you. In fact, no paid. We're not paid at all. And it costs us thousands of dollars. In my case, you know, for hosting a podcast, or in your case, whether it be legal fees, personal protection, whatever, you know, you spend a lot of money. And you're not charging anybody. If you're not selling advertisements, we're not looking to go viral. We're answering questions from real people. And the question I keep being asked is, you know, why'd you guys lie to us? I talked to one lady last night. And I said, what did I lie to you about? And she says, well, they didn't do anything. You know, it's like they didn't do anything. I understand the emotion of it. And I took it like a punching bag. You know, I just took it. And then I said, well, you know that the Dominion Company, you know, shared office space with George Soros. We know they received a massive amount of funding from China. You know, the head of the company is Eric Coomer. We know he's pro-Antifa. I mean, you know these things, right? She goes, well, yeah, but they didn't do anything. So I just want to make sure the listeners know the facts remain, but it's the acts. The acts is the part that I think makes us all a little insane, because the facts remain. Well, you know, but the fact that we can't see the action is what's making everybody insane. And I just want to get your comments on that, because people are asking, well, you know, Clay, ask Lynn about Sidney Powell and General Flynn and all these people that seem very confident. You know, where are they now? What's going on? And I'm going, listen, I've never met Sidney Powell. I've never met General Flynn, but they're all people that love the Lord, Christian people. So I wanted to, I'm not even sure if that's one question or maybe 18 questions there, but maybe you can comment on that.
Well, let me tell you, Sidney Powell is a truth giver, and she loves the Lord. General Michael Flynn, one of the finest men I've ever had the privilege to know and call friend. He is a truth giver, and he loves the Lord. They haven't thrown in the towel. They're not giving up. They would like to have seen things resolved sooner, but they're not in a position to pull the switch on the timing. The
right.
people that are in that position have a body of knowledge and a strategy that's not known to all of us. So don't lose faith in Sidney, and don't lose faith in General Flynn, and they shouldn't lose faith in you, Clay. What happens, and this may take just a minute or two long and you won't, but let me just explain this so that we can understand, I think, what's happening. Caesar was threatened by Jesus because Jesus was obviously having the masses of people follow him. That threatened Caesar's power. So what did he do? He charged Jesus falsely with the crime of claiming he was God.
Right.
So they stirred up the agenda to try to attack Jesus by saying that he was guilty of blasphemy. And they whipped the crowd into a frenzy on that one point, where the crowd was saying, you're crazy, Jesus. You don't know what you're talking about, Jesus. You lied to us, Jesus. And they said, guilty, kill him. They did. They killed the Son of God. But in the frenzy, the masses failed to remember the body of his work in life. They failed to remember that he healed millions of people, that he had performed miracles, as John said, more than the paper allowed you to write in the Bible. So they forgot about the body of his life's work. They got focused on the frenzy, the propaganda, and they killed him. They killed the Son of God. But they didn't kill the message, did they? In fact, they elevated it. That message has lasted for 2,000 years, and it continues now to be regrowing, to be stronger than ever before.
Yep.
So what they'll do is they'll criticize you, they'll criticize me, they'll make false accusations, they'll exaggerate claims against us because they want to try to kill the messenger, because they can't attack the message. Because what we're telling people is our best knowledge of truth. Truth cannot be attacked. Truth is incontrovertible. So if you can't attack the truth, the message, you attack the messenger. Does that help put things into a little bit better perspective?
It really does. It really does. And I would just say, folks, if you're out there right now, God wasn't surprised by the results that we saw.
He planned it.
Yeah. I mean, God wasn't.
If you want to know who controls the elections, it's God.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to make sure God was not surprised by watching the godless Lady Gaga prancing around the inauguration event. God was not. I was appalled, but God was not shocked. He wasn't surprised. And I don't claim to be God. I don't claim to have a really direct link. I can't call God, and God doesn't say, well, this is on Tuesday at 4 p.m. This is going to happen. I don't have that. Oh, man, I would love that. I would love that. But I would just encourage everybody, take a deep breath, and let's see what happens. Len, is there any kind of timetable we need to be looking for? Should we be looking for the summer of 2027? Should we be looking for the fall of 2034? Should we be looking I mean, should we, seriously, what is there any type of timeline that we can look at all? Or any thoughts? I don't want to paint you into a corner by asking you a question because, again, I don't.
Well, everybody say I'm wrong, but I'm going to give you my best analysis. And so, obviously, analysis, it's an opinion. It's based on fact, but it still could be right or wrong. But at least it gives people some things to think about. Our country has fallen into, historically, a country that decides policy based on election cycles. We think in terms of every 2 years, and clearly we think in terms more clearly of every 4 years. Other countries, like China, they engage in long-term strategy, a 100-year plan. They engage in that strategy, they formulate it, and they execute it. We're always bouncing around. So it's going to take time for America to fully understand and accept the radical, but I think necessary change that's got to take place in our government. Now, does that mean it's going to take 4 years or 8 years? I think it's going to take several years for people to fully get their arms around it. But in terms of what everyone's looking for is when are we going to get a rest? Well, I don't know. Only God knows. But I do think that if you look at the situation, that there is a growing anger, there's a growing feeling of helplessness amongst the American patriots, who I'm sure begin to think, well, we got to take action. That's why I said obey the rule of law, stay within the Constitution. But there's also a growing problem for the other side, the bad guys, because people are learning the truth slowly but surely.
Right.
They're learning their issues about the legitimacy of the inauguration. They're learning clearly there's some issues with the election. Italy was involved. I mean, everybody around the world knows this was a stolen election. They tried to hide it from half the American public with the propaganda media. But it's coming out. So when it comes out and they realize that we are going to know as a nation that this was a fraudulent election, that Biden's not, the puppet's not in power, they can't let that body of knowledge grow but so far before they have to act. So I think it's in the next, I don't want to say week, 2 weeks. It may be sooner. It could be another week or two after that. But I don't see how we can let this kind of thing blow up much more before something occurs. People want to know too much. They want to take action, both sides. That's why I caution, let's let them play their hand first. Let them make the attack on us. Then we will respond. We always unite against a common foe. But I think our military is ready. I think China's ready. I think George Soros has had Antifa and Black Lives Matters in several major cities for a period of weeks or months ready. So it's kind of like we're sitting on a powder keg that's going to explode, and I don't think we can sit on it much longer. But again, all we can do is control our individual actions.
Yeah.
In terms of mindset, let's stay calm, let's stay steady, let's try not to overreact, even when it's difficult to avoid feeling an overreaction.
Right.
And then in terms of our conduct, let's stay within the law. And then I think we've done the right thing.
Yep.
The other side will do the wrong thing. And I believe, as God teaches us, that good will prevail over bad, right will prevail over wrong. So let's don't stoop to their tactics, which are violative of the law. Let's stay within the law. And believe it or not, this Constitution was inspired by God. The men that wrote it, inspired by God. That's why we cling to the principles and fundamentals of our Constitution.
Yes.
Let's continue to trust the Constitution.
Yep.
It was inspired by God, and I go back, like I've said before, to don't trust Clay, don't trust Lynn, don't trust Donald Trump, don't trust Joe Biden. Trust God. Trust God because he is in control. He created this world. He controls this world. He has allowed sin to exist, just like in my life. 2.5 years ago, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, all right, let's go. I said, I'm surrendering my life to you. He used sin in my life to teach me lessons so that I would be better prepared when he tapped me on the shoulder and I surrendered to him to finish the job, make me into the person he created me to be, to fulfill the task that he created me to fulfill. So we've got to remember that evil, everybody knows this, they're flaunting it in our face. It's risen to a level where now people are beginning to realize just how much evil exists in this world. At the right time, God's going to crush it. We're going to know that he's real. We're going to give him all the praise and all the glory. And I think our lives are going to be better in the next several years than they have ever been in our generation, if not for generations.
Amen. Amen and amen. Lynn, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you asking or answering some difficult questions that were asked by people. I know some of the questions might have sounded a little bit rough there, but you know, that's why I want to have these conversations with you when we think it's appropriate, where you can answer the questions. And I don't want you to feel like this is a hit job, some of the questions, but just many people had questions, and so I wanted to ask you.
I want to say this. I love questions. I would love for your listeners and other Americans to ask questions, to ask the tough questions, to seek answers to the easy and the tough, because then they'll get the truth and they can analyze it and come to their own conclusions, which then they will firmly hold. When they try to just accept ours, they say, well, you didn't get it right. I can't trust your conclusions. They need to think for themselves. God gave them instinct. He gave them common sense. He gave it to us all. He gave us the Spirit of God. Yep. It lives in our heart. We do have a direct line of communication with God. We can talk to God anytime we want to. And then if we wait, he will listen. He will answer. We spend a little bit too much time talking to him and not enough time listening for him. So just take some time. Turn off your brain. When you have a tough situation, the devil's battlefield is your brain. It will confuse you. A lot of garbage has gone into that brain over the years. Turn off your brain. Listen to your heart. Your heart never lies to you, because that's where the Spirit of God resides in your body.
Lynn, you are a great American, a proud patriot, an unapologetic Christian. I appreciate that about you, my friend, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Same to you, Clay.
Take care, brother. Now, before we move on to part 2 of today's show, I did want to get you the information that many of you are reaching out for. Many of you are asking about how you can gain access to the Paycheck Protection Program funding. And again, because many of you who listen to this show are business owners, and you own a company, and because of the lockdowns and the unconstitutional lockdowns and the quarantines and the mandates, your business has struggled financially. Well, there is the Paycheck Protection Program funding round 2 that is now being made available, and many of you have reached out to the show and have asked how to gain access to the funding. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going to interview a longtime friend of mine, a man by the name of Brett Denton. Brett Denton and his company he's with is A10 Capital. And Brett's going to explain to you the process that you need to take in order to gain access to the Paycheck Protection funding. And then we'll move on to the next portion of our show where we are going to feature Charlene Bollinger's town hall, her virtual town hall that she did with names that you are going to know. So now without any further ado, here we are. This is Brett Denton with A10 Capital, briefly explaining how the Paycheck Protection Program funding works. Brett Denton, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be here.
Where are you? Are you in a bunker? Are you in a lair? Are you at the top of a mountain? You have access. You have the keys to the castle. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Boise, Idaho, and I'm bunkered up trying to knock out these PPP loans. That's all day, every day on the computer trying to get people approved.
Well, let's do this. I'm going to give out your phone number if that's okay first, because if anybody out there wants to get the Paycheck Protection access to you, they want to talk to you more about it. Is that okay if I give out your phone number there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the phone number is 208-991-6537. Again, if you're looking to gain access to the Paycheck Protection Program funding, this would be round 2. You can text Brett Denton. The phone number is 208-991-6537. That's 208-991-6537. Brett, what do you know about the Paycheck Protection Program round 2?
Yeah, so there's a few things about it. So first of all, if you didn't take advantage of the first round of funding, you can still do that. So with this second round of funding, if you didn't get the first round, we would have you apply for the first round of funding, which is a little more lenient. Okay, so basically you just have to have economic doubt or uncertainty when it comes to your business for that first round. Now, for the second round, the difference is you have to be 25% down in top-line revenue, right? So not after expenses are taken out, but top-line revenue, total sales, you have to be down 25% or more in any quarter. It only has to be one quarter, but any quarter in 2020 versus the same quarter in 2019. Okay, or you have to be down 25% for the year. So that's kind of the main qualification for this second round that's different from the first round.
So again, you have to be down what percentage to qualify?
25%, and again, that's top-line revenue, so total sales.
Got it. Okay, so again, if you're listening right now and your revenues are down 25%, again, you potentially qualify?
Yes, potentially qualifying. If you qualify for the first one, you're more than likely going to qualify for this one if you meet that 25%.
Okay, so we've covered who qualifies. Now let's cover what are we getting here? What if people qualify? What kind of financial assistance are our listeners going to receive?
Yeah, so here's what you're going to get. You're going to get your payroll cost, so your monthly average payroll for most businesses, 2.5% of that, right? So if you spend $10,000 on payroll per month in an average year, then you're going to get 2.5 times that. Now for banks, for restaurants and like hotels, accommodation type businesses, they're actually going to get 3.5 times their average payroll on this second round. So again, 2.5 for most businesses, 3.5 for restaurants and accommodation businesses of your payroll for this second round. Who qualifies? We've covered that. What people can receive. When do they have to apply? When does this deadline? Do we need to apply now? Should we wait? When should we apply? Yeah, so the sooner that you apply, the better. Just because, just like last time, there's a certain amount of money that's separated from the stimulus package for this. It's $284 billion, which sounds like a lot, but that's half of what we had last time. Now, the actual deadline is March 31st. So you have to apply before March 31st, but we don't want to wait that long because there's paperwork we have to get through, there's things we have to verify, and of course, you're then put in a line behind everybody else who's already applied, right? And so we want to get you applied and ready and into the SBA system as soon as we can.
So we've covered who qualifies. We've covered what people can receive. We've covered when we need to apply. I think we talked about where you're located, but not to the level of degree that I wanted to get into. Are you currently in Boise, Idaho?
I'm in Boise, Idaho.
Are you in a room or are you outside?
I am currently in a room in front of a computer.
How many highlighters do you have on your desk?
1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 highlighters. Yep.
Okay, I'm in. I believe you. You sound credible. Now, again, you own a gym called Cavell Fit, Cavell Fit, Kvell Fit, FIT.com. And many people who look you up are saying, well, why is Brett Denton assisting me with my paycheck protection funding? I mean, there's a reason for paranoia. This is a year of what? Misinformation, miscommunication, misunderstanding. Somebody's got to be asking, why are you the guy who's making paycheck protection funding available, and what's in it for you?
Yeah, it's a valid question. So I work with a company called A10 Capital. A10 Capital here in Idaho. We do commercial lending for pretty complex commercial properties and loan structures. And so the way that I got tied up with them is, I was in the fitness industry. The fitness industry obviously took a hit. I had a friend, mentor, coach who owns A10 Capital, and he said, hey, we need to help small business owners. We need some help, and we need people to originate loans. So during the first round of the PPP, I came on with them, and I started originating loans for that first round of PPP. And so that's how I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. I'm here to help the small business owner who, frankly, last time got left out of some of that funding. And so I'm here to help those people. Now, why does it matter? Why am I doing it? Well, other than out of the goodness of my heart, which is always nice, we, of course, get compensated
there we go.
for these loans, right? So we get compensated for every loan that we do by the government. So it's not the person getting the PPP loan that's paying for this, which is different than most loans, right? We are compensated by the government for getting these loans out to small business owners.
Got it. So again, folks, if you're listening right now and you are in need of the Paycheck Protection funding, I encourage you urgently today, text the number 208-991-6537, 208-991-6537. If your business has been forced to be shut down, I think it's unconstitutional. I think it's un-American. I am upset about it. However, if you need the funding to make your business survive, I get it. And I'd encourage you to text the number 208-991-6537. Brett Denton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care. All right, Thrive Nation, now in part 2 of today's show with Charlene Bollinger, the co-founder of thetruthaboutcancer.com. Again, Charlene Bollinger, the co-founder of thetruthaboutcancer.com, she put together a round table featuring some incredible names that you know. Dave, the host of X22. Mike Adams, the host of Health Ranger, Zach Voorhees, the big tech whistleblower, Pastor Greg Locke, Lori Gregory, Pastor Dave Scarlett from the His Glory program, Pastor Brian Gibson, the host of the SGT Report. All these people are assembled on one incredible town hall, and so I wanted you to hear what these people have to say now that we're on the other side of the election. And then we'll be interviewing Ian Smith, the New Jersey gym owner, who you've probably seen on Tucker Carlson. He's the co-founder of the Antilles Gym, and he's going to join us to share about the persecution he's been facing and the $1.7 million in fines that he's had to pay already for committing the crime of keeping his gym open. It's truly unbelievable. So here we go, part 2 of today's edition of the Thrive Time Show. And this segment begins with Charlene interviewing Pastor Greg Locke.
So let's start with you. Tell us about what you do and what are your thoughts about this election, and is there hope?
You know what? I think there's a lot of hope. It's interesting. I'm at Liberty University. I'm actually in the airport now in Lynchburg, getting ready to fly home for our midweek service tonight. But I spoke this morning to a room full of pastors at a conference called Courageous Pastors. And no matter what happens, I think the biggest problem in America is the church is laid down and rolled over. And I think pastors are going to have to be courageous, especially in these days. But I still have massive amounts of hope. I still think a lot of this is smoke and mirrors and nonsense. And we know who won. Okay, all these people are like, oh, my goodness, all your predictions were wrong. No, the predictions were right because we know that Trump won by a historical, unbelievable landslide. The facts bear that out. And I'm going to stand on that. I'm not going to back down on that. And I can't help the fact that, a demon-possessed, crazy, deceived, government has been willing to take over. But I really don't think it's going to be for that long. But I do think we need to buckle up for the ride because although I have a lot of hope and a lot of just, joy in what I believe the Lord's going to do, I do think the massive revival is coming through the back door of persecution, and we got to be ready. And so we're going to find out who stands and who doesn't. And they already know the people that are going to roll up shop and quit standing because they did it once. And we didn't do it the first time. We're not doing it the second go around. And so we've got bail money aside. We'll go to jail if we have to, because I'm not rolling over, and I'm not going to back up on my support for the Lord, and I'm not going to back up on my support for Trump, because the man won the election. And so I think we are still in for a little bit of a fight, but I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And I think some of these people that are considered to be the conspiracy theorists, Lynn Wood and Michael Flynn, I think they're 100% right. I think they're 100% right. And we're going to watch God turn this thing around. I really believe that.
Amen, brother. Amen. We're with you. And as a pastor and a Christian, what would you encourage believers in this world to hold on to? What do they have to hold on to? What is their hope?
Well, I mean, ultimately, our hope is in the word of the Lord, and we know that this thing turns out okay. I tell people all the time, the Bible doesn't end with "oh me," it ends with "amen." And so it ends with hope. It begins with hope, it endures hope, and it ends with hope. And so no matter what happens, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, and so we can't give up. We're supposed to be fighters. God made us fighters. We're not, supposed to be fleeing. The wicked flee when no man pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. And when we know that we have truth on our side, we must be righteous. And we got to get away from this nonsense that's all arrogance and that's all pride. Romans 13, you have to submit to a buck-wild tyrannical government. Absolutely not. We obey God rather than man. These are the days of Acts chapter 5. And we got to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When the world is falling down to the politically correct nonsense, we stand up and we push back and we say enough is enough. And we fight. And that's just what we do. And so there's where my hope is. There's where my hope shall remain. And we've got a bunch of people at our church that know that we're in the last days and perilous times are upon us. But God has used 2020 and he used COVID-19 and he used this phony inauguration to thin out the ranks and raise up an army. And I think we are going to see who's serious and who's not. And I'm going to stick with the people that are serious.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. And next, I would like to introduce my very good friend that I've been working with daily and sometimes 10 times a day. We've spent countless hours on the phone, encouraging each other, praying together, and bringing intel to one another and doing everything that we can to infuse the world with the truth. We know, as Pastor Locke just unpacked a little bit, that Donald Trump won by a landslide. We see the intelligence, we see the fraud, we see the numbers, and we saw on election night that Donald Trump was winning by a landslide in every state. And then the next morning, things changed, and we know there were ballot dumps and so forth. But Lori Gregory, she is the CEO of Seventh Chakra Films, and she's doing a lot of amazing things. Lori, can you please share your heart with us today? And I know that you come to the table with a lot of inside information, and we've talked a lot about that, but what is your view on where we are today? This is Inauguration Day. Is this inauguration real? Do we have something to hope for as patriots, as Christians, for the future of America? Where are we today? Where do you think we're going? And is there any inside information that you could help us to understand? You're muted. Peter, can you unmute her?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here with you and with all of your panel, all of whom whose work I'm familiar with and have great respect for. It's wonderful to gather with you all at what I would call sort of a tender day. I think that, having faith is really a precious gift every day, but especially on days like today, when sometimes, we don't really understand what we're seeing and how it matches with what we believe and have heard to the contrary. So I think today is a day to really take heart and connect in prayer with the Lord, to know we are at a place where we need to trust, we need to have faith. I'm thinking about three things right now. I'm thinking that we've learned a lot, that we need to go local, and that we need to really reflect on the progress that we've made with life. So what we've learned in the past 4 years has been tremendous. And I don't know how you feel, Charlene, but I definitely have gained a wealth of knowledge of understanding how our political process works, what we're up against, and what it was exactly that President Trump and his administration was trying to accomplish. We still hold out hope. I'm with Pastor Greg that, God can perform miracles and things can happen, but right now, by all intents and purposes, it looks that President Biden is our president. I really just want to know the truth. I'm happy to support, my president as long as I know he was fairly elected. And I don't feel we have fully investigated the charges of fraud. They have not had their day in court. We have not fully vetted what has been accused, and there's too many unanswered questions about that. So I believe there will be some kind of due process to answer that question. And I hope the wheels are already turning to help us get there. So I believe we've learned a lot. We need to take stock of what we've learned and go forward with knowledge that we've gained on this journey so far. I think we need to start thinking locally. I've already talked to some folks in my community the past couple of days about thinking about midterm elections, thinking about educating ourselves in each of our states with what key races are there going to be. And around all of that, learning locally who our elected officials are and who our appointed officials are with regard to election sanctity. I'm in Florida. Are our elections safe? Did we have fair elections because we didn't have Dominion machines? We need to locally start thinking about tuning into what our systems are and are they credible? And then my final thought, of course, is life. I think this administration has done a tremendous amount to recognize the sanctity of life. The executive order that President Trump signed 2 days ago that on January 22nd proclaims, I believe it's Unity Sanctity of Life Day. I know I'm butchering what the official title was, but Charlene, you and I talked about that and actually read it to one another and got very emotional, because to hear that kind of language coming out of the White House and from the office of the president, I don't believe we've ever had a president that's been more supportive of the innocent life that is taken every year, 1.4 million lives through what is the choice movement. So I think the sanctity of life, we need to regroup with health freedom. We need to really think about what is this COVID program bringing to our nation. We have 55 plus people dead from this questionable vaccine. I was hoping to work with the Trump administration on a second term on health freedom to help educate them about some of the concerns that I don't think were permeated through Operation Warp Speed. We still have a lot of truth that hasn't reached the upper echelons of power with regard to vaccine safety and vaccine policy. So we certainly have a lot of work to do on that front. And regardless of who's in the White House, that's something that we are going to have to fight for. The Great Reset, I'd love to hear what some of the panel members have to think about that, because of course that is the primary concern, is that this administration is here now to launch the Great Reset. And that is a tremendous concern with regard to socialist implications, our nation being taken over, another lockdown. Health freedom is definitely under siege in America, and we need to start thinking about how to stop that.
Thank you, Lori. You've mentioned so much of what we've talked about. There's so much, really, we could talk for hours and hours about all of these things. I just want to mention, we got a chat room that I keep getting pinged on, and a comment just came in from a viewer that said, "All lies, there is no hope." Now, that comes straight, I have to say this, plain and simple, that comes straight from the pits of hell. That is not true. As long as there's breath, there's hope. And what Ty and I do, what we've always said, our tagline on everything is, as long as there's breath, there's hope. So no matter what happens, there is hope. Now, the panelists here, we believe that not only did Donald J. Trump get elected by a landslide, and we approve to show that he has won by a landslide, but we still have hope that the military has options, and that the military has been given everything that they need by Donald Trump. And I believe the DOD and the DOJ know that China was involved with this this coup d'etat, with this fraud, this election fraud. And so we believe that the military is going to take action. If they don't, the highest level of the military, they're very foolish, because they would be, in fact, in danger if they don't. But let's say the worst case scenario happens. Is it really hopeless? Is your life really hopeless? Well, if you put your trust in Jesus Christ, it's not, because this life is like this. In the span of eternity, it's a blip on the screen. And so we just encourage everyone to pick up your Bibles and read and ask God to reveal to you who he is. And he's faithful. He will. And so with that, Pastor Dave Scarlett, what is your take on what's happening today? What do you think is really happening behind closed doors? Where does your heart say, and what do you feel?
I'm with you. I believe the military is still going to take action. And there is always hope. There's always hope in Jesus Christ. And that's what this has to be about. It's not about a man. It's about knowing our Savior and about being awoke so that we preach the gospel to east to west, to north to south, so they know who the risen Christ is. And people are experiencing that right now. And as you said, until we have a breath, there's always hope, because that hope is to give people eternal life through him. That's what it's all about. So I'm very optimistic, even though it's gloom and doom out there from people. But that's the way our God works. He works at the right time, his perfect timing. He's a God of miracles. He shows me that every single day.
Thank you, Pastor. I couldn't agree more with you. There's always hope as long as there's breath. But beyond hope in Christ for eternity, we still have hope in this world and in America. The military is not done. Why do we have, I think now, I heard people quoting 20,000, 30,000. I believe there's upward to 65,000 troops in DC. That's unheard of. I mean, what are they getting ready for? And what are they really doing? Nobody knows. Your guess is as good as mine, but some of these panelists know a little bit more than others, and we're going to get to those things. But right now, I want to talk to my very good friend, Zach Voorhees. I've grown to really become attached to this guy. He's known to the world as a Google whistleblower. In fact, down in Mar-a-Lago, he was there and the president was there, and he pointed at Zach and said, "Hey, Zach Voorhees." So the president knows who he is too. We've had conversations. If you haven't seen them, look them up on our YouTube channel, The Truth About Vaccines. And I think we did 2 or 3 conversations, Zach, and every time we talk, people want more. They love you. Our people love you, Zach, and as I do. I think they pick up the vibe that I really, really like you a whole lot. You're a man of integrity. You didn't have to, but you told us the truth about what was going on behind closed doors. And I still remember, Zach, you telling me that you were involved in an executive meeting at Google with YouTube, and that the CTO was weeping about the win of Trump, saying they couldn't allow this to happen in the next election. And I think they had a lot to do with what we're seeing come to pass. So I would love for you to share a 5-minute block of what your take is with big tech, where we are today, how they pulled this off, and what the solutions are beyond what we're seeing happen today. And you're muted. Zach, you're muted.
Thank you, Charlene, for the introduction, and thank you for lifting my spirits in this difficult time. I guess my thoughts and my analysis about what's been going down is this is an instance of psychological warfare, and it's being done by the deep state, because that's how afraid they are right now of a population that's waking up together and piecing together what their true history is. And realize that the future of this battle that we have with these oligarchs that want to stay in power is that they're having a really challenging time managing us now. The amount of pushback that they're getting basically poured over the cup, and they decided to do a Chinese-style censorship regime that was just installed in the last 4 years. Now what you post on Twitter can be used against you to deny you financial services, housing, deny you a platform to speak. And now a lot of the influencers are wondering whether they're going to have to become like an Anne Frank of podcasting. Looking back at this, destruction of the United States with its press freedoms, we have to realize that, it's a disruption of the old system by technology that's driving this whole thing. And it looks like the coup is complete at this point. And we have to wonder, what they're going to give us as goodies to sort of placate us, because now we know that they're fake. We know that their elections are fake. We know that they'll steal it. We know that they'll use the worst criminals ever to do the theft. And now that we know that, and they know that we know that, where do we go from here? How do we stop that so that we can live semi-normal, natural lives in fully good health and be able to enjoy life and stop being manipulated by all these pain pressure points that they're pushing on us? Because I think people are more motivated by pain than they are about pleasure, just because we seem to be creatures of other animals, and other animals are usually trying to satisfy some sort of hunger pain or whatever sort of like pain avoidance. So clearly the oligarchs are using this pain avoidance to corral us into the direction that they want to go. So if any of you elites are watching right now, like what can we do to stop all the bullshit and get us on a path of where every human can concentrate on living out their fullest potential rather than try to fight each other? We need to stop the division. And that's my analysis on the situation.
Thank you, Zach. As always, you are very thought-provoking in your analysis, and you mentioned a lot of things that a lot of people are asking right now. If we could talk to the people that have their hands on the control panel, the cabal, the deep state, who's controlling it and why? Well, on the highest level, this really is a warfare. It's a warfare between forces of evil versus forces of good. I mean, we can open up our Bibles and read Ephesians chapter 6, where, you know, God gives us our spiritual weapons that we're to be fighting with. And, you know, from the helmet of salvation, which protects our minds, to the breastplate of righteousness, which protects our hearts, the belt of truth, which sets us free, and the feet with the gospel and with peace, and the shield of faith. And our sword, our offensive weapon, is the word of God. So that's what we have, and that is truth. Now, this is really, if you look at the warfare of good versus evil, there's an evil entity that's infusing the world with fear. What are they using to do that? The mainstream media. Those are not journalists, they're not news reporters. Those are mockingbirds reading scripts. And so nothing that they really say is even close to accurate, but we all watched in horror on election night, Fox News and what they did. They were worse than CNN. I turn that off and I now watch One America News. They're honorable, they tell the truth. I've been watching Dan Ball a lot and the other journalists, and they are journalists and they're bringing the truth to us, which is fantastic, because the truth is what sets us free. They control us because they lie to us. We listen, we believe, we think, oh, we got to put the mask on, we got to get the vaccine. Oh my goodness. I know a lot of people that I love that are out there getting the vaccine right now because they're afraid. And they're controlled by fear. And like you mentioned pain, there's pain with that fear. That fear causes pain. But look at the other side of it. We walk by faith and not by sight. So we have, we put our trust in God, who's ordained all things from eternity past into eternity future. And he only does that which is good and that which is right. We walk by faith instead of by fear. And that brings us peace, serving the Prince of Peace. So there's darkness and light. There's fear versus faith. There's pain versus peace. So I don't think that the people that have their hands on the control panel, and I've done the research and we kind of know what they're doing and who they are and what controls them. God is able, certainly, but will they say, you know, you're right. Here you go. Here's your freedom back. Historically, we know that tyrants don't give us freedom back. We have to fight for it. And here on this panel are the freedom fighters, and I'm proud of each one of you. So again, I still believe that there's a lot of hope. And with that said, I'd love to hear from you, Brian Gibson, Pastor Brian, to just help. What is our hope? Where do you see us as being today? And you've been a freedom fighter in the front lines. And as we all have been lied about and persecuted, you're in a place where your faith is being tried, but you're being purified, and you still have that faith in Christ, and you always will have that faith in Christ. What is your take on this?
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Charlene. I think God hadn't given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So the first thing we all have to resist is we have to resist fear, because fear is a liar. And I'll tell you, I'm not afraid. Right now, my life's under threat. I've been threatened. I don't know how many death threats I've got. I quit counting because it's not healthy to meditate on that. But I still walk up to my pulpit on Sunday morning. You know, they took some pics of me. I was on the Trump March with Pastor Greg Locke. We preached across the nation. I've been standing up for the gospel and the First Amendment with PG.Today. We opened up 5,000 churches against government overreach and constitutional breaches early in COVID. And so I've got a lot of enemies right now. And I know the people on this panel have a lot of enemies right now. But I'm telling you, I've read the Bible, and there are more with us than there are with the camp of our enemy. We are never outnumbered. We are never alone. We are never living by ourselves. I'm telling you, God, if God be for us, who can be against us? So my message is a message to the church, and that's get your eyes off of the temporal, get your eyes off of the panic machine, the media, and get your eyes on the cross of Christ and the Word of God. Let's focus on the eternal. My hope is in this. I know that Jesus Christ is not just a lamb. He is also a lion, and he's going to return. His feet are going to land on the Mount of Olives. He'll walk down through the Kidron Valley. He'll scale Mount Moriah. He'll sit down on the Temple Mount, and he'll make all the wrongs in this world right again. And I say, come quickly, Lord Jesus. But until then, here's what we're to do. I think we're to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ around the world, and we're to stand up for this great nation. The America didn't start the church started America. The only thing that can save America right now are voices of freedom, patriots, people full of the Spirit of God and full of wisdom. The left is going to do this now. The leftists are going to come after us all with hit jobs again and again and again. Here's what they did to me. I was speaking on the 5th. You spoke there. Many of us on this panel spoke at a prayer to save America. I got to preach the gospel out there. I saw more than half the crowd receive Christ. It was a glorious day. And then on the 6th, what happened at the Capitol happened. They took a picture of me with that guy that looks like somebody from Animal Kingdom, right? He's got the, I think they call him the Q shaman or something. Yeah. He's got horns. He had a ferret on his head. He was standing out in a rally that I was speaking at in Phoenix. And I walked out and I took a selfie with him. So be careful who you take a selfie with. And took a selfie with him. I said, this guy's outfit's crazy. Never saw him before or after. So they took a pic of me and they took him in the Capitol doing what he was doing. And they said I was a mastermind behind the Capitol siege. And they went out on the internet and they said these 3 words. These are the words when you know they're coming after you. They said, make him famous. You know what make him famous means? It means threaten his family. And so they published all the numbers of my church campuses. They got my cell phone. My office got thousands of emails, calls, threats. Our attorney, we have an attorney that provides free legal counsel. And he's like, hey, could y'all take my number down just for a day or two? Because they're scaring my receptionist. So I've had to move my family multiple times. I've had to have armed security. I'm still walking into my pulpit every Sunday morning. Because listen, I'd rather die in front of my crowd than to play the coward. I will never back down of getting to break the bread of life up there. So here's the deal. The left, they have a force in this world right now, but you got to remember that your force is greater. We also got to remember that these people are people. Even though they're wicked and evil, they still are redemptive beings, and that Jesus loves them. So I say it like this. I choose to soften my heart and harden my forehead. I got to keep my heart soft so I can see people the way God sees them. But I got to keep my forehead hard so I can take the hits for the body of Christ. So if anybody's out there and you need help, pastors, church leaders, you need, listen, I've got free legal counsel. Open up your church. We need to get back to meeting in person together. I'm for all online outreach. I do that myself. But you see the kind of power they have in deplatforming. You see how the CCP still has a Twitter account. The Ayatollah of Iran still has a Twitter account. All the people that have threatened my life, they still have these accounts. But we've got all conservative voices they're being deplatformed again and again. And so we got to get smart. We've got to have our own servers. We're going to have our own banking. We've got so much work and groundwork to lay right now. We're going to have to get wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But the first thing we have to do is pastors have to open their church. Put on the black robe. That's the powerful man and woman of God. Take off the yellow robe, the robe of the coward. If we'll open the church, the small business guys will be empowered. They'll open up, right? School teachers will start pushing back. Spirit-filled school teachers, they'll help open up. The church leads everything. And I think we got to know that. So if I can help you, let me give you a couple of ways you can get in contact with me. Church leaders out there, you need help, or people that want information about the fight for the First Amendment. Because I've only began to fight for the First Amendment. I've only began to fight. And I believe there's people right here, you've only began to fight as well. And I don't care. They can cut me down. They can kill me. My God will raise me up. I do what I do now for the safety of my family. But you can text me, all right? I'll help you. Here's the text number, 806-640-1342. 806-640-1342. And just text free to that. And I'll help you with fighting for freedom for the First Amendment. Get you hooked up with free legal counsel, pastor out there. And I'll tell you, church, take heart. Don't be afraid. Come on, greater is he is in you than he that is in the world. You can also check us at pg.today. You need help, we're here to help churches. Thank you so much, Charlene.
Wow, that's what a blessing. Thank you so much. And just so you all know that are watching, I am going to add in the notes under this video everybody's contact information. So offline, you all just send me what you want to share, how you want these people to get in touch with you, your website. If you want to share a number like Brian just did, glad to do it. So for the viewer, be encouraged. We're going to get you in touch with these people in the way that you can find them. They've got different channels, different ministries, different things going on. And each one on here, I'm a big fan of every single one of them. So I encourage everybody to follow all that they're doing. Brian, thank you for being brave enough in the Lord Jesus to stand up in the gap, even as you're being threatened. Ty and I have also been threatened. We've talked to Mike Adams about this, Lori, and some of you on the panel here, that we moved out of the country to New Zealand. But when we were over there, that was years ago, back in 2008, we got some serious death threats. They were following us home and all kinds of stuff. But when we were in New Zealand, the Lord just spoke to my heart and said, the angel of the Lord is at your door. They can't touch a hair on your head unless I allow it. For your good and my glory, go back. I put you in America for a reason. That's where you're to bloom. He's taken away that fear, and we are fearless. And that's kind of scary for the forces of darkness, to have people that are afraid. And God will bless this nation as the Christian leaders like Pastor Locke. We've seen Pastor Locke, be threatened too. And he's opened up his church. You have, Brian, you've encouraged others to do the same. Thank God we go to a church that's opened and fearless as well, because our hope is in Christ. And if God is for us, then who could be against us? And so we need the Christian leaders to stop cowering to the state and start bowing before the King of the universe, who is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we can ask or think. He is all powerful and he is good. And he does help us in our time of need. And he's got a throne of grace available night and day. Let's not let it grow cobwebs, but let's go to him, because he's there beckoning us to come. So with that said, I just have to segue what you said, Brian, with the platforms and the solutions and what the church needs to do, to my very good friend, one of Ty and I's very best friends, most trusted confidants that we have ever had in this world. He's got a situation update every day. We don't miss them. Sometimes we're so busy, we're listening to a little bit, then we pause, go on with whatever we need to do, and then get to the end. Mike Adams, the health ranger, I was on a call with him. I think it was last night. We've been doing so much, it's hard to keep it all straight, but we were on a call with some generals, General McInerney, trying to remember who was on that call. Lynn Wood was on that call. They had mentioned Sidney Powell and Flynn, getting information from them. Mike, your updates have been priceless, but before we get into your thoughts on this, I want the viewer to know that Mike Adams has been so persecuted by these social media platforms. He's been deplatformed by everybody. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. But Mike has invested so much of his own resources, time, finances, in the millions to build these platforms. And right now, his situation update is on his own platform, Brighteon. I encourage everybody out there to go to brighteon.com, sign up. If you've got content, put it in there. That is the future for content curators, patriots, Christians. As we're being persecuted and deplatformed, we need to bring all of our big audiences, and we've got millions, into Brighteon. He's got a social media platform, a video platform. He's got search engines. I mean, he's got a science lab. I can't say enough good things about Mike Adams. He's a leader, unlike any other leader I know. He's not just talking about it, he's doing it. He's providing a place for us to come together under one umbrella. So we talk about solutions, and Mike Adams is providing and building those solutions. Mike, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Charlene. It's an honor to join you here and also to be with your other guests. I'm a fan of most of the people on this call. Some I'm meeting for the first time, and that's a great blessing. I'd like to reach out to them afterwards. But my take on this, Charlene, is that the inauguration was theater. It's staged. It's not real because there is no legitimate inauguration following a stolen election that was demonstrably rigged and also blatantly unconstitutional. And had the Supreme Court even accepted that Texas case that they threw out based on standing, they would have had to rule on the merits of the case. They would have had to rule that the swing state elections were unconstitutional. They may yet be forced to issue that ruling in the days ahead. That's something that Sidney Powell is working on, Lynn Wood is working on as well. But I have to bring in that all hope is not lost here. In fact, one of my good sources texted me this morning and said, watch the next 24 hours, because the military has been handed proof that the election took place under a declared national emergency and it was rigged by an aggressor nation, China, that's engaged in acts of warfare against the United States. This is something that General McInerney has spoken about, and he's absolutely correct. DNI John Ratcliffe, the Director of National Intelligence, had handed over proof of the cyber warfare and information warfare, the hacking that had taken place to rig the election. That was handed over to Chris Miller at the DOD many, many days ago. So the DOD is completely aware that Joe Biden is an illegitimate president and that the civilian executive, quote, leadership of this nation right now is a cabal of criminals. And in fact, I believe that Trump had handed over to the military all the authority that they need to assert their power in order to arrest those who are traitors and also, if necessary, declare new elections based on paper ballots. Now, speaking of paper ballots, let's remember that the paper ballots under all elections that have federal candidates, those ballots must be kept for 22 months. So they are in storage rooms right now across America, in the swing states and other states. Those ballots contain absolute, irrefutable proof that Trump won the election. And it is now, you see, the Democrats think they stole the election, but now they have to get away with it for the next 22 months. And during this time, there are going to be legal efforts underway to uncover that fraud and to examine those ballots. And analysts like Jovan Pulitzer has spoken about that. All the evidence already exists. It's just there in rooms. We have to bring it to light. And once we do that, then the whole world will know the truth about what happened. And the Biden theft can be retroactively rendered null and void. At the same time this is happening, don't forget that Trump has put in place hundreds of federal judges in states across America. Hundreds. It was a huge number, the most of any president in many, many decades. And we also have 3 justices on the Supreme Court. Now, we were disappointed with Justice Roberts on the Supreme Court, especially in issuing the order to not hear the Texas case. But we know that the other justices, such as Barrett and Gorsuch and others, especially Thomas and so on, are on the side of the Constitution and on the side of God. And they are with us, and they will help defend against the regime of authoritarianism that Biden and the clown show of crazed left-wing lunatics that are behind him are planning to push out all across America. Also, the states like Texas are going to go to battle to try to block every unconstitutional law that Biden will be trying to put out. So AG Ken Paxton here in Texas, where I am, has already said he's going to do that. We're seeing action in Florida, in North Dakota. Other states are about to join as well. So my message to all those watching here is, number one, God wants us to see what's about to happen. We are being asked to witness this. I don't know the answers because none of us can know the mind of God and the timing of divine events. However, like many other speakers here today, I also still have faith, and I encourage others to exercise that faith. Watch what happens and understand that God will not allow this nation to fall to evil, but we may need to witness some evil before the solution comes to light. And finally, one more final thought, responding to Zach and what he had said. I'm a great fan of Zach. Thank you for being on this call. I just want to mention, I think one reason why the globalists do not want us to live in peace is because there is a satanic element behind the globalist agenda, and they feed off fear and they feed off suffering. So in the spiritual battle that's taking place in parallel to the political battle, there is a desire to make us suffer as much as possible. And it looks like they're going to make us suffer for some time here. We need to be prepared to be persecuted, but still walk in the faith of Jesus Christ as we do that. So that's my message, and thank you for inviting me.
Mike, as always, you're filled with information and hope, and I appreciate that about you so much. So again, the viewers, if you haven't found Mike, the Health Ranger, he's got naturalnews.com, and Brighteon is where you'll find his updates, and we'll link that into the notes later so that you can click in and start to listen and be a part of that community, which is so vitally important for today's message giving into the world outside of the mainstream lying mockingbirds. And Mike, I think that you said that you have now, you were, one of your updates, you could tell I really listened by bringing these things up, but you said you were happy to have 20,000 listeners. You were just trying to help. And you've been through so much persecution, and it's been a humbling agent like none other. And Ty and I have been there. So we totally are with you there. But today we're seeing the numbers, and you mentioned 350,000, but I saw above 500,000. We know people in the administration, high up in the military, and people from all over the place that do have intelligence are listening to you. And as a result, they reached out to you to give you even more information to help that flow of information get out there.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, it's getting the attention of people who know what's coming. They've been very reluctant to share any specific details because there's operational security, and we also don't know if the plan is going to be thwarted or succeed. But that's why we say everyone prepare for all possible outcomes, including a possible worst case scenario, but also prepare for miracles, because I think we're going to see some. So thank you.
Amen. Thank you. I agree with you. God is able to do it, and I believe that he will. The people that are called by his name are crying out for help, and God hears us. And so I just wanted to segue into my new good friend, Sean, with the SGT report. Zach Voorhees introduced us. And Sean, I'm so glad that he did. You've been a blessing to my heart as a brother in the Lord, and just going back and forth and having conversations. And I know that one of the conversations we had, you've been blown out of YouTube. You had 750,000 viewers or subscribers close to that on YouTube, and they took your channel down just simply for telling the truth. It's so crazy what we're dealing with, but you've got quite a few built up on BitChute. And our conversation had, the last time I saw, 225,000 views. So you've got an audience that wants to hear what you're saying. And just as I've enjoyed my conversations with Zach Voorhees, I've really enjoyed my conversations with you. And you just mentioned that you wanted to piggyback on something that Mike said. So please share it with us and let the listener know where they can find you, since you've been so persecuted.
Oh, thanks, Charlene. Yeah, sgtreport.com is the best place. And yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Mike said, because you know, I listen to his situation updates every day. I think he knows that, and that's a guy who puts his money where his mouth is. I mean, he's invested $2.5 million into Brighteon, and you know, patriots need to stand together in these tumultuous times more than ever. But I just want to make a comment on essentially the satanic element that is in play here. Mike's right. You know, it was Archbishop Vigano that warned the president about the children of darkness. And it is a battle, the children of light versus the children of darkness. And so today we all have such heavy hearts upon watching Biden being sworn in. But what's really going on here? Okay, we talk a lot today about hope. Where do we find hope? Well, we have to find hope in the quantifiables, and none of us know if there's anything else going on behind the scenes that's going to save our republic. But that's a key word. What do we have? Now, if we go back to the July 4th speech by our president in front of Mount Rushmore, he told the American people that he has returned the government to the people. He has restored our republic. What did we see today? We saw Joseph Biden being sworn in as the president of the corporation. Washington, D.C. is a foreign country. The people there are employees of a corporation owned by a foreign entity governing the sovereign soil of the USA. So Trump is the president of our republic. Biden is the president of the corporation. All right? I know that sounds a little like, okay, what's really going on here? How do I quantify that? Well, what were all of the Trump chess moves going on while he was president? All right? Executive orders in 2016, 2018, 2020 regarding foreign actors interfering with state elections. By issuing those orders, that became the vehicle to take back the lands owned by foreign entities. And I want to give a shout out to Scott Kesterson from Bards FM, Bards of War. He did an incredible interview that I listened to last night, and it gave me great hope last night. I went to bed thinking this thing is going to all be, we're getting our republic back today. Now that hasn't happened, but I do want to play a 60-second soundbite from Scott Kesterson's interview with Jim Pugh. Jim Pugh is a author, a theologian, and a guy with a lot of expertise in banking. And let me just play this if you don't mind. I hope you guys can hear this. Let me know right away if you can't. But in March 2020, Trump enacted a national emergency, and through that national emergency, FEMA took charge over the emergency. So here's the premise. I think this is worth 1 minute, and then I'll pipe down so other people can talk.
The premise is that in March of 2020, by the enacting of the charge, the governmental authority over the corporation side of things was transferred to FEMA. And they assumed the duties of the government at that time. Now, why do I say this? Well, you take it up to July the 4th. July the 4th, in Trump's speech at Mount Rushmore, he signified that we, the people, had got back our government. That was very interesting. Now, not saying exact words that he used, but in essence, that's what he said. And right after that, you would find Melania's tweet saying the same thing. That was a signal that said, guys, we've just moved to the Republic.
I'm going to pause it there. Could you guys hear that okay?
Yes.
Okay. If I may, let me just play. Now, this is Scott Kesterson after digesting another 30, 45 seconds of information that I stopped it early there. But now listen to Scott, his recap of what he's just been told.
Two governments.
So right now, what we're faced here is I'm going to use the term kabuki theater, because literally the people, and maybe this explains the importance of the Trump base standing up and voting in mass, the people that stand with President Trump, which is 80 million plus at this point, against a government that has only authority by perception and illusion of control. Is that fair enough?
Sure, that's absolutely true.
So I'll just pause it there. I think it supports what Mike Adams was saying about today's events being theater. This is absolute theater. Now the question is, are there fail-safes in place right now to take our republic back? Now, the republic has been restored by President Trump, but today Biden was sworn in as the president of the corporation. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, because to find hope, sometimes we need quantifiables, and I think those are some quantifiables. Can't hang my head on it, right? We still have to fight. We still have to speak out. They want to prevent us from speaking out. They want us to not have conversations like these. But at the end of the day, it is a battle between the children of light and the children of darkness. That's my view.
Sean, as always, thank you. That's really great information. I'm going to listen to that again and maybe talk to you offline. And we would have loved to had Scott on this phone call. Maybe we'll do this again and have him join us. And you did send me that, and I want to listen to it in its entirety. So thank you for sharing with our audience, and also for the link that you shared with me. I'm going to listen. It's hard to listen to everything you want to because we're all so busy, but there are certain channels that we don't miss, such as yours and Mike's, and I'm going to listen to him as well. So thank you for that, and always being a voice of reason and encouragement, and your love for the Lord, and your spiritual eyes and lenses that you're always wearing. And with that, I would love to bring in your friend. This is my first conversation with Dave from X22. We have heard you. We love your work. I know so many people that send me different videos. They've been encouraged by you. You seem to be able to get that information, wade through it, and bring it to us like no one else. So welcome to this panel, and I'm so excited to hear from you on my own platform for the very first time.
No, thank you for having me. I don't know if people know who I am, but I'm Dave from X22. I had a YouTube channel, which was approaching 1 million people. I had a Twitter account, which was around 600,000. I was on Spotify. I was on Apple Podcasts. I was on every platform, and everything was deplatformed. And from what I saw today with the inauguration of Joe Biden, with everything that's going on, I don't believe that this is over at all. I think actually today was the beginning of it all. I think there's a clandestine operation going on right now behind the scenes. I think there's a lot happening at this moment that we're not privy to. And knowing Trump, researching Trump, understanding Trump, he's not an individual that just walks away and says, all right, I give. Because think about what he left here. He left us with censorship. He left us with the deep state, which I call them, in control. He left us with the Great Reset, which is coming. So everything that he did within the first 4 years of his presidency is going to be thrown out, which we can see Joe Biden, he's planning to do already. He's ready to move forward with what they had planned before Trump came into power. So I do believe, and everything that I've been researching, I think this is just the beginning stages of a major operation that's going down. Yes, the troops are there. Yes, the troops are in many different places. And I don't think that this is something where it's just going to end. I think there's a plan that is happening in the background. And soon, I don't think it's going to be weeks. I think it's going to be in the next 7 days or so where we're going to see things start to turn around. It's almost like our founding fathers who fought the Revolutionary War. I mean, think about it. These individuals, they were fighting for freedom. And when they saw the British sail up with the biggest army that they have ever seen in their life, they didn't just say, oh, well, that's it. We're done. Let's run. That's it. We can't do anything. No, they stood their ground. And if they lost, they would have been known as terrorists, but they didn't lose. They're known as the founding fathers of this country, patriots. And I think today, all we saw was these individuals, a force that Trump has been battling since he became president. And all we saw today was this force pushing their way into the presidency to try to regain control. And I think these 4 years, what it was all about was building the foundation for what is to come. And the foundation is an economic foundation. Moving away from my private Western Central Bank, what he was building was the Great Awakening, where people are awake now. A lot of people see very, very clearly now about 75 to 80 million people voted for Trump because they realize there's something wrong. Before, a lot of these people were sleeping. So I think that was the beginning stages. I think this is where this was all headed, to bring the people on board, because I don't think he was able to do this alone. He needed the people on board with him. And I think this point on, we're going to see everything completely change. That's my take on it.
Wow. Well, thank you for that analysis. I think that all of us on this call agree with what you're saying. clearly, as we listened to each one of the speeches since, especially since January 6th, and that was a false flag. It's been proven that that was Antifa. We were there and we watched it. We've got video proof, and they're taking it down off of social media that Antifa was there breaking windows, and the Patriots were screaming, Antifa, Antifa, stop them, stop them. Well, since that time, they used that to make us look like they're projecting. Antifa is very violent. They burned down cities. They've looted and rioted. They've stolen things from businesses. They've hurt people, and they've even killed people in cases. So that's very dangerous. That is terrorism. Patriots were gathered by many, many thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million, in the Capitol on January 6th. And we were there just to stand for freedom, to exercise our right, our constitutional right, and our right given to us by God to assemble and peaceably let our voices be heard that we don't agree with something that's happening because the government is run by we the people. So they try to take the narrative, they're shape-shifting and they're brainwashing hearts and minds. But like you said, Dave, people are waking up. This is a great awakening like nothing we've ever seen. And the censorship has only served to show people this. I mean, when the president got censored, we knew that eventually Twitter, he was in danger of Twitter taking him down. We were trying to get alternative media so that he'd just get off of that and onto the alternative media. And Twitter would shrivel up and die without the president because his enemies and his fans alike are all there to hear what does he have to say today. He had the wisecracking tweets that made us laugh or cry or whatever. So there's a lot going on. People now are awake, and patriots are standing together. Christians are standing together, and everybody on this call is critical. The voice is critical to get out there into the world. And so thank you for sharing everything that you're feeling, at least right now in this moment, with our audience. And I just wanted to segue into our good friend, Clay Clark. Clay, I met him in Washington, D.C. at the Trump Hotel. I was with Marla Maples, Tiffany Trump, Maria Zack, and some other friends of ours. And there's this well-dressed man with a beautiful wife and a whole team. And he just approached us with his book, and we just started to talk and got to know him. And I've been on his amazing podcast, and he always makes me laugh, but he's filled with truth and a whole lot of hope too. Clay, thank you for joining us. Please let our audience know where they can find you and let us know how you're feeling today.
Well, I'm feeling very encouraged right now. I know that's probably not the official approved emotional state, but I'm the guy when my dad died of Lou Gehrig's that asked people if they wanted to go have barbecue. You know, I think if you die, you go on to a better place. So I'm going to keep it very positive. But if everyone is listening right now, if you want to see the proof that I'm going to present on today's show, just text the word truth. Text the word truth to 918-552-5142. Text the word truth to 918-552-5142. We had 100,000 people in the past 24 hours text that number. And I have a lot of encouragement. So I'm going to pile on Team X22, Team Mike, Team Charlene. I've got a lot of positive things here. So if it's okay, I'd like to let her rip. Okay. So reason one, I just call it the 5 hopes here, okay? H. He wasn't surprised. Who's he? I believe that God is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. I don't think he was shocked by any of this. And I think that I am very insignificant in the concept of infinity. I have 5 kids. I believe I'm here for a reason, but I know God has a big plan. So I'm trying to piece it together. I love great shows like X22 or like the Health Ranger. But at the end of the day, God was not surprised. He was not surprised. Oh, we have some options. I want everyone to remember this. President Trump, he put Peter T. Gaynor in as the head of FEMA. FEMA has more power than the Constitution. So I don't know what FEMA's going to do, but on January 14th, 2020, Peter Gaynor, who served in the Marines for 26 years, took over as the head of FEMA. That's a good thing. I'm afraid of FEMA, but we have a good guy in charge of FEMA. 2, our president put a man by the name of Christopher C. Miller to be the Secretary of Defense on November 9th. You wouldn't do that if you were just going to go out peacefully, in my opinion. He also put in Ezra Cohen Watnick to be his right-hand man, a man very loyal to General Flynn. And as I understand it, these guys are in control of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. Next, President Trump, his last tweet referred to giant voice in all caps. Giant Voice continues to be the name of the military mass notification system. These are all positive things. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, and I can tell you this, if faith wasn't required, we wouldn't have the word. Right? I mean, the concept of faith, Martin Luther King Jr. said, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. I don't see the staircase. I feel like I feel like I'm in a house that doesn't even have a staircase right now. But I've got some facts here. P, persecution. So you got the H, you got the he was not surprised. Oh, you have options. P, persecution. It states in the Bible, Matthew 5:11, it said, blessed are ye who are persecuted for his righteousness' sake. So I have my phone right here. I'll hold it up to you guys. This is exciting. When you text that word truth to that number, people also have found out a way to text death threats. So I have like 45 right now coming in. So I must be blessed. That I just keep the death threats. I try not to delete those ones. I got 45 death threats. If I have 45 death threats, I must be blessed, because it says, blessed are ye who are persecuted for his righteousness' sake. So that's a badge of honor. For anybody out there experiencing persecution, we're supposed to take up the cross. The logo's the cross. The logo's not the pillow. I like Mike Lindell. I love my pillow. But a comfortable pillow was not the logo. It's a cross. And so we're supposed to suffer for our beliefs. We're supposed to suffer through persecution for Christ. I see that as a good thing. E, H-O-P-E, E, exposure of election fraud and medical fraud and censorship. For as long as I have known of Charlene Bollinger, you've been talking about medical fraud, and people thought you're crazy. And for as long as I've heard about X22, people say, that show is crazy. And when I heard about Mike Adams, people said, that you got to hear this guy's show. He's crazy. And it turns out you're all not crazy. Medical fraud, election fraud, it's all been exposed. President Trump, his Twitter account has been deleted. Think about this. The models that said 2.2 million people might die are fake. The PCR tests are falsely calibrated, thus inflating the number of cases. And the proven treatments, budesonide, ivermectin, and hydroxychloroquine, they're all being banned. We are banning FDA-approved asthma medication called Pulmicort, or if you want the non-generic brand, okay, budesonide. We're banning treatments that work. There's something going on. People are exposed to the truth. We're waking people up. And S, surely President Trump wasn't wasting his time or your time, and he hadn't lost his mind. Think about this. President Trump, he is going to be under as much attack as anybody on this show or more. They're already saying that Stripe can't process payments for him. People can't have their events at his golf course. He understands. He didn't ignite this fire to leave us hanging. So I'm telling you what I'm doing right now. I'm praying without ceasing. Every time I start to worry, I worship. And it is an act of discipline. I don't want to worship. I'm putting on my praise and worship music going, I don't feel it right now. Okay, and I kind of get myself encouraged. And I'm putting on the armor of God, because it says in Ephesians we're supposed to pray without ceasing, give thanks without ceasing, so that we can have divine revelation and enlightenment. And I have met all of you wonderful people this year, so I have nothing but good things to say, nothing but good things to say, nothing but good things to say. I am encouraged about it, and I believe it is showtime. I call this the Great Awakening. It's when all things will be revealed. And there's that little book at the end of the book. Sometimes when we read books, we go to the end of the book and the beginning of the book. Genesis, God created the earth, But Revelations is a time of revealing. And I have never seen more people text somebody. Well, obviously I haven't given out my phone number this much in the past, but I'm running into people at Brahms Ice Cream and Dairy. And this lady's got a mask on, kind of wearing it as a chin strap, and she's listening to my voice while I'm buying some avocados. And she goes, "Are you the guy from the show with Lynn Wood? The models are fake." And she was like excited to meet somebody because she was wearing the chin strap. I went into Target the other day, and a guy I don't know says, "Thrive Time Show," fist bumps me. No mask, baby. But, I mean, why are people fist bumping about not wearing masks? Because the truth is being revealed. Jesus is king. President Trump is our president. And I do believe we're back to the republic. And I'm super excited to see how FEMA is used. It's a little scary. It's a little exciting. It's kind of like the last scene in Star Wars. Luke's going down that little trench, and they're going, "Stay on target, stay on target." They're going, "Luke, you turned off your targeting computer. What's wrong?" And he's like using it's a little crazy, but I'm excited for Han Solo to come on in here. blow this, make the path, scare off Darth Vader. I realize that's not a viable strategy, but I'm excited about Star Wars, and I'm excited about victory, and I'm honored to be on this show with everybody here. Thank you, Charlene, for lowering your standards to allow me to sneak in.
Clay, as always, you always make me smile. Thank you for that. And you are full of a lot of encouragement. Thank you for the acronyms and things you give us to remember what you're saying and make it funny and interesting too. This is one of the best panels I've ever had the pleasure of hosting. I was hoping to get into, each one of you have your own space, your own ministries, your own ideas, but I see such similarity weaving its way beautifully throughout this conversation. And, taking a few minutes of each one of you sharing from your hearts where you think we are and maybe laying out a few solutions.
Charlene, I had one horrible interruption. I won't do it again. I promise. You can kick me off. On April 4th, 2008, Kim Clement said these words, the prophet, on April 4th, 2008 in Seattle, Washington. And he said, "And they shall say, but now there is a second president. How can we have two presidents? ? An unusual thing, isn't it? Says the Spirit of the Lord. Why would it be that one with a double mind would stand up and face the people? Now they shall say, we have two presidents. What do we do now? Fear not." Kim Clement, April 4th, 2008.
Thank you, Clay. Lori is I think you sent me links to Clement videos. I've seen a little bit of that. I haven't really dug in a lot. I will, but that's very interesting. I'm sure that some of you, as when Mike Adams was talking, Sean texted me and said, that gave me something I want to share. So I'm sure you're all thinking, well, I would have liked to have built or said something or commented on this. So let's open it up to a complete panel discussion, as it were. So just to continue, if you have a few more minutes, I'd love to be able to get you guys to talk to one another so that we can unpack a little bit more thoroughly. Is that good?
I have one question for Clay.
Yeah.
Clay, can you shout out that number again? You speak faster than most of us can write.
Yeah, if you text the word truth, the number, text it to 918-552-5142, 918-552-5142, and I'll send you Hunter Biden's laptop, Jeffrey Epstein's unredacted flight logs. I will send you his black book. I'll send you the cure for COVID-19, and I'm going to send you my personal cell phone number so you can send the death threats direct. My number is 918-851-6920. Come get me. 918-851-6920. To die is gain.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you. Speaking of Hunter Biden's laptop, I've seen some of that stuff, and that's some trash there.
I'm sorry I kept sending it to you.
Actually, thank you for not sending it, but other people did send it.
That's
so there's that. Okay. So is there anything else that you guys, as we're talking about solutions, I know that Mike Adams has built out some solutions.
I had a question for Mike. Can I ask Mike a question?
Yeah, sure. Go shoot.
Mike, how do you keep yourself from wearing the "I told you so" shirt? And then I would like to ask Mr. X22 the same question, because you guys have been talking about this conversation way before it was cool and popular to do it. And everything that you guys have said has now been proven to be true. And I'd like to get Mike's thought on that, and then a comment from Team X22.
Well, thank you, Clay. I was invited to the "I Told You So" awards that are going to be happening soon, and probably many people on this panel will be invited. But no, it's if you're 1 month ahead of the curve in this society, you're called a genius. If you're 5 years ahead of the curve, you're called a heretic. So that's where we are. A lot of us saw this coming. One of the silver linings of this last year is that all these things that we warned about, and Sean at SGT Report, and Dave at X22, and so many people, it's all come out now. There's no doubt the censorship is here. There's no doubt the vaccines are dangerous. There's no doubt that it's a medical police state they're trying to roll out on us. So yeah, it's all obvious now. That's a blessing, and I think that's going to help propel us forward into actual long-term solutions for our society.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do. Seriously, thank you for what you do. It's an honor. It's an honor to meet you.
I want to talk to you after the show. So I wrote down your number since you generously gave it out. I'll be texting you.
Okay. Mr. X22, can I hear your thoughts? And by the way, I love your voice. I love the voice.
My voice. I don't know. Okay. That's funny. No, I mean, listen, I've been doing this since 2013 when I started my YouTube channel. And, I still get the same hate emails. You're wrong. You're crazy. So nothing's really changed. So I just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm looking for the truth. And this is way before Trump. I mean, I was looking for the truth, taking back the country, trying to rally the patriots, trying to wake them up from the very, very beginning.
Yep.
And some followed, some didn't. Some continually say I'm wrong. And, that's fine. I don't really care anymore. They can say whatever they want about me. I mean, if I go to Telegram now and I look at all the comments that are coming in, whoa, people are upset. They're angry. They're pissed off. They don't like what's going on. They think I'm done. But like I said, if you're in this country, you're a patriot. Where are you hiding? Where are you going? What are you going to do now? I mean, I understand that, listen, things didn't go exactly the way you thought it was going to go, but life is a journey. Life is up and down. Plans don't go exactly the way we think it's going to go. And sometimes if you think it's going to happen on X day and it happens on Y day, what's the difference? There's no difference in it. But, people, I feel that everyone right now thought that everything was going to happen exactly, boom, we'll take the country back. I can go back to my life. Everything will be great. And I think the deep state, the powers that be, they don't play that way. I mean, we can see it. Look at the censorship.
Yeah.
Look how many people they've censored. They're going to continue to censor. They're not going to stop censoring. They're going to continue this. And there's no place for all of us to hide. So we have to all stick together. The deep state, I've been studying them for quite a while. Their goal is control. That's pretty much it. The private Western Central Bank and everything, it's their entire mission is control of the economic system, control of control of the media, control of Hollywood, control of everything. So, we continue to move forward. And I think, like I said before, I think things are about to change. I don't think this is the end. I think this is just the beginning. I think it had to be this way. It's almost like the Matrix, where you think everything is done. Neo's laying on the ground. He was shot a couple of times. And all of a sudden he stands up because he realizes, wait a minute, this is code. I'm not dead. I can stand up and I can do other things. I can control what's going on. And I think Trump realized that in the beginning when he came into office. He realized how everything has been manipulated, how everything has been controlled by these individuals. And he realized he's able to control everything around him. And he used it to his advantage, and he used it against those that were trying to silence him, shut him up, get rid of him. And now, after everything I've seen, I think that, and if you research Trump, he doesn't just walk away. He just doesn't say, I'm done here. Good luck, everyone. Thank you. It was fun being president. I did it for the rallies. I think he's ready to make his move in it. And everything that we've seen, and you mentioned it, Clay, he put a lot of things in place, and it's in place for a reason. Everything is where it's supposed to be at this moment, and he's going to be moving forward with that plan. What exactly is it going to look like? I don't know, but I feel it in my gut. I feel that something is about to happen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? And maybe you guys with military understanding can explain to us, because there are a lot of folks that really feel that now that President Trump is out of office, he doesn't have the power that he had, and that if he were going to make some kind of move, it would have been done while he still held the office of president. There are other folks that really feel there's a lot more that he could have done, that he had power that he didn't use. A lot of people were speculating that he was going to somehow figure out how to pardon Assange, and that he gave away too much power by being influenced by McConnell threatening to impeach him. What can we hold on to? We certainly don't want to be burned again. If Q was a psyops, there are folks that were holding out hope that, let's face it, President Trump ran on, Hillary getting locked up. That was part of his campaign, Hillary didn't get locked up. So there are a lot of folks at this 11th hour, I think we're actually at 11 hours and 59 minutes, that are really thinking, come on, what have we got to hold on here? I just want to play that devil's advocate.
Let me just jump in here first, because it's a great question and we're getting asked that a lot too. I think that if we listen carefully to what each of the presenters and panelists here have said, we have our answer. So in the first 4 years, Lori, and we've talked a lot about this, the president has laid a foundation like none other. He's undone a lot of the swamp creatures' work prior to this his administration, and he's laid the footwork for another administration, and he keeps mentioning that. Not once has he really conceded. He hasn't said, well, the Bidens are going to do great, Joe Biden, Harris, nothing. He says, new administration, the best is yet to come. He's still saying that. Well, he's given the military, as Mike Adams so clearly presented today, everything that they need. The evidence is there that this administration, you mentioned in your thoughts earlier that they stole the election, but did they? Did they? Or was this a setup to make the entire thing complete so that now they can come in and prove, not just speculate, well, this is where they're going. Now we can say, this is what they did. They swore in Biden an illegitimate president, and they knew what they were doing. And also with the D class, we were wondering, why did the D class not happen sooner? Well, I'm talking to others and sources telling me that that's the way the military operates. They're not going to do it too soon, because then they'll have a way of escape and they can escape justice. So everything, I believe, is playing out according to planned. This president has given to our military everything that they need. So it's up to the military now, Lori. The military does have what they need to go and correct these wrongs, to go and bring justice to these people that are not really in the office that they're sitting in. They're illegitimate, and they have the power to go and take them and try them for treason, which they have committed, and it's proven. So that's, I believe, what is on the table. The upper end of the military, the generals, as an example, and Mike Adams has said this clearly on his updates, that if truly Biden gets in, we know that's plugging, he sold us out to China. So that's the Communist Party. They're going to come in, and what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to get rid of those high-level military officers, and the military knows this. What are they going to do? They've got the proof. Are they going to act?
Can I chime in with some? I have encouragement for Lori. Lori, good to see you, Lori. I had something I wanted to share with you. When you swear in to be a member of the military, and I have not, I played GI Joes, but I have many friends of mine who've served. You take a solemn oath. You swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. That's a fact. I have a confirmation bias, though, where I view everything through a positive filter because I want to save America. Just like Paul, you throw Paul went into prison, right? He got beaten 39 times on 5 separate occasions, and he wrote the Bible from prison. I mean, the homeboy wrote 13 books of the Bible while in prison, so that guy had a confirmation bias as well. So there's an optimism there. But the big idea I don't think people understand, and I think that on the SGT report, Mike, you've talked about this on your show, X22, is the Republic of the United States is now not being utilized. We have this corporation that is running around. So we're using the wrong operating system here. And the Federal Reserve is not, this is crazy. The Federal Reserve is not federal, and there is no reserve. So at the end of the day, I have hundreds of employees who work with me, and they get their paychecks from me. So I'm like the boss. I'm the one who writes the paychecks for my companies. Well, the Federal Reserve is our monetary supply, and they are not federal, and there is no reserve, and they hate us. And so, as I understand it, and maybe other people who are more educated on this can explain, and I've had many constitutional experts reach out, many attorneys have reached out to me, many members of the military. They've said, Clay, we have to fight. We took a pledge to fight against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and we have a domestic enemy we're fighting against, and that includes the Federal Reserve is fighting against us. So my understanding is we have to get away from the United States corporation and move back to the republic. And how we do that is something that President Trump has not told me. It's probably, I think if I was the leader of the free world, I probably would tell me last, because then I would immediately tell my audience. So, so I think it's a thing where I hope it works out, Lori, but I can just say that we have to get rid of the Federal Reserve, and we have to go back to the republic. And that is I don't know how we do that. Maybe SG Report or somebody else can comment on that, but that's my understanding.
I've got something to add to Lori's question, and thank you, Clay, for your optimism. It's awesome to hear from you too. But if Trump had invoked the Insurrection Act, you need to understand the Insurrection Act is inside the rule of constitutional law, and his invocation of that act would have ended with the ending of his first term, which just ended. However, by transitioning to military authority, which is temporary martial law, that supersedes both the Constitution and also Trump's term or Biden's term. So military authority, and by the way, I heard that the top leader who's in charge of the troops on with CNN with George Stephanopoulos saying that, yes, what's happening right now is a peaceful transition to military authority.
I heard that.
I watched it twice to make sure he said that.
Yes.
Yes.
And so under military authority, then the Constitution is suspended. And there is no executive leader and there's no elected leader during that time. And it's a scary time, a scary concept for a lot of people. But
does that mean, Mike, that we would be ticking toward that 12:01 tonight if we go to the next day? If there isn't an actually sworn in president, then the United States, the corporation, the Articles of Incorporation dissolve? I mean, is that what we're kind of leading toward, you think?
I don't know about the corporation structure and what causes that to dissolve. Maybe Dave has more information on that. What I know is more on the military side, that it's an extra constitutional process. The Constitution gets suspended, and the executive branch is also then temporarily nullified, while FEMA runs its continuity of government operations.
Yes!
So the COG kicks in, and remember, Trump signed that national emergency on January 11th to activate that FEMA operation, while handing all the evidence of foreign interference and acts of warfare to the military. So, look, the bottom line is none of us can know whether the military is going to pull the trigger on that plan, but everything is in place for them to do so.
And that's not something that Joe Biden could undo as a sworn-in president.
Well, there's 65,000 armed troops there who are in control. So I don't think, ultimately under martial law, it's ruled by gun by the military for a temporary period of time. And I guess then at that time, the hope is that they give us our country back.
And the National Guard is being controlled by Secretary Miller, is my understanding, who was appointed by President Trump on November 9th. So a Trump-appointed person since November 9th is leading that big army. So that's exciting, too.
Well, that's interesting because, Charlene, as I was watching the inauguration, it did look like there was the implication that military was being controlled by Biden and by the new administration. So there's definitely some implications that are happening that are counter to what we're being told by you guys right now. So I'm encouraged to hear that things are not as they seem. And that is, having faith without seeing right now is really the challenge of where we are.
It is. And thank you, Lori. Very insightful questions and thoughts, which a lot of our followers are definitely asking. But remember, what we're watching is theater. It's almost like a clown show. I mean, I can't even believe that we're watching this. This man, Biden, who can't take 2 steps in the right direction, who can't even remember what to say. And we've all seen the clips. They propped him up and they're using him. He's simply a puppet at this point. And the military, why do we have that much military strength there? We've never seen this before in our country, never. And so they're up to something. And they do have control. And of course, they're going to script it on MSNBC or NBC or whatever, even on Fox News or whatever. Yeah. It's all very well scripted. They put the pieces in place. It's like making a movie, putting all the pieces in place and then streaming it live. So it's just a show. We can see right through it. A lot of others can too. But like Mike just said, time will tell. None of us on this panel, and I don't know of anybody personally that has that inside information, that only probably a few really do have. Something is happening. We all know The military has the ability to eradicate this scam and fraud. So time is ticking. We'll continue to gather and pray together for our nation, because God is able. And if there's nothing else you all want to share, I'd like to close this in prayer. Is there anything that we need to share before we close it down?
There's one thing I wanted to bring up as we talk about trying to escape the lawsuits to kick us off these platforms. One of the things that we may notice is that there are a list of protected classes, and political ideology is not one of them, but religious is. And so, as we go forward for the next 4 years, as we decide to brand things, it might be advantageous to brand it as a Christian this or a Christian that. And that way, when they come after you, when the trolls come after you, you can say, no, you're persecuting me because of my religious views, and those are protected classes. And it's going to give you a possible case for, a discrimination lawsuit in the future. And it could protect you, because they may say, we just don't want to deal with this because this looks like religious persecution, not political persecution. So something to keep in mind. The label of Christianity could be protective in more ways than it appears at first.
Thank you, Zach. And that was one thing I wanted to tap into quickly. If anybody else has any solutions, that's very important. Talking to the generals, Mike, when we were on the call the other night, one thing that they said that we need to repeat here is that you need to stop acquiescing to tyranny. Now, I know that probably everybody on this panel, when you go out, you're not masked. You're not wearing a mask. You're not social distancing. I mean, my brother-in-law is here, Ron, to celebrate Ty's birthday. So they're having a party while we're talking. But Ron said something that he was out with his friends, and they were in a line that said 6 feet distance, or 6 feet here, or something like that. So they were standing 2 people together, so they had 4 feet. And there was a woman that was very afraid of COVID or whatever. And so just in jest, they said, hey, we need 6 feet here. Can you come and join us and put your 2 feet here? I mean, it's funny, but we need to just say no. I have not yet shopped at a store that makes me mask. If they try to put a mask on me, I walk away. Most of the time they'll acquiesce, but then there are the aggressive people that they'd rather shut their store down and live out on the streets in a box than let you come into their store without a mask. And that's okay. We vote by our dollars. What has the cabal done to us? What have they done to Mike Adams? They've shut him out where he's building his own platforms, but he's highly successful because he has not acquiesced. And so they're trying to shut us out by shutting our means to make money and to pay our bills and to go out and buy food. They want a vaccine passport. I'm done flying on commercial airlines. We need a Patriot airline. We need Patriot companies. We need a Patriot Amazon-like company. And we're working on some of that behind the scenes. But stop spending your money on companies that are rolling out tyranny.
Yep.
And that means don't fly. I drove to DC when I went, and I drove back. It was a long drive, but I did it. I'm a big girl. I can do these things, and so can you. I'm not going into stores that are forcing masks. I used to love Costco. I have not been in that store since this began because I will not wear a mask. So stand up, open up your church, stop wearing the mask, start educating people, talking about it openly, and also tell people about the election fraud, because honestly, people just don't know.
True.
Beyond those solutions, just telling the truth and acting in truth, what are other solutions that we need our viewers to know about?
Hey, Charlene, let me say one thing. I don't know if you got me right now, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. When you push back, when you take the strong stand, so many of these people have platforms. They're counting on people coming to listen to them. I'm a pastor of a local church. So many pastors won't push back because they fear people walking away. But for every person that walks away because you take a constitutional stand or you take a Christian stand, I'm telling you, greater people will be drawn to you. And I've watched some of the strongest people, the best leaders, the best hearted people and fighters begin to show up at our church and join in our ranks because we said, hey, we're not going to take it laying down. We're going to stand up for Jesus. We're going to stand up for you. So don't fear people that walk away. If they walk away, Come on, sometimes God protects us by the people he puts in our lives. Sometimes God protects us by the people he takes out of our life. Let them go. There's a better tomorrow coming to you. Don't be afraid.
Brian, is someone with you right now who's wearing a bull outfit? Is someone wearing a ferret on their head?
Yeah, he's with me all the time, Clay.
Sorry, I wasn't sure.
I took a picture with a lion. I'm responsible for every antelope he eats.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Thank you, Pastor. That's so true. The opposite of fear is faith. We walk by faith and not by sight. The enemy is controlling us by fear, and we can take away the fear as we share the truth. It really dispels. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, Isaiah 4:12. Our ministry has always been that of truth. On our cards, it says that verse, and the truth shall set you free. And Mike knows we've been in this for a long time. We published our first book in 2006. That's when we started getting our death threats. 2008 was when they got hot and heavy and we moved out of the country. But we're operating in faith in Christ, and so we're fearless. The Bible says that fear brings a snare. Fear of man brings a snare, but the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And we have an all-powerful, all-wise God that we can tap into day and night. He's only a prayer away. So I encourage patriots and Christians, gather together, network, and just continue to get this video. Find out all of these people. If you don't already know them, follow them and share their work, because it's critically important. X22, Sean, what do you guys say? Have we left anything out on the solution aspects?
You want to go, Sean, or should I?
You know what? You've got the world's biggest podcast, pretty much, that got deleted.
Not anymore.
You were 22. Did people know this about you? I think you peaked at 22 in the country. Is that right?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Awesome.
Actually, right before they took me down, I hit 20, and then my little graphic went away on the chart, and then they just took me off.
Yeah,
So
no,
that,
it's just
that was
unbelievable.
completely gone.
You know, again, a solution, from my perspective is, what Mike Adams is doing with Brighteon, and our friend Ray over at BitChute, and of course, Odyssey, Rumble. There are other alternatives to YouTube's tyranny, right? So they terminated. Look, I've been saying that YouTube is basically acting like digital Antifa, right? They'll burn down your storefront and you get no recourse. It's no different than Antifa burning down, shops in Portland and Minneapolis and Kenosha, Wisconsin. So that's what we're up against, is total tyranny, where you can build something, right? X22 Dave, you can build something, I think, bigger than Steve Bannon's War Room. At one point, your podcast was that big. Mine was growing 35% a month. And we both just got taken out, right? So they burned down our YouTube channels. They burned down our Twitter accounts. I'm not on Twitter now anymore. And so then I built a podcast and they burned that down. So that's what we're up against. This is an absolute, when I had Zach on, I said, Zach, if this doesn't go the way we all hope and pray, what are you going to do? And he said, well, what you need to do in a communist purge is you get out of the country. So, I pray that the military does what the military ought to do to save our republic, because if it doesn't, we are in for a very hellish 4 years. And I still have hope. I still feel it in my heart. Like I trust that Trump would not have left us hanging like this. Yeah. And, with the whole FEMA National Emergency Act, giving FEMA the power to actually be a government unto itself, I have to believe there's still stuff going on here, and all hope is not lost. So I'll turn it back to you, Dave, for solutions.
No, the solution is I think Mike Adams has built a nice platform, and I think many others have been building platforms. Some of them are not that great. Some of them are a little bit better. But I think we need platforms to rival YouTube, to rival Apple, Spotify, and the rest, because they control pretty much all those platforms. And if they're able to take us down, then where do we go? And it's very difficult. I mean, I brought everyone to my website, and that's where everyone comes to my website. Now, can they bring the website down? Yes, it depends on what hosting service you use. I used to use Bluehost. They sent me an email saying, we can't host you anymore. I was using GetResponse to send emails out. Actually, my daughter saw this on Twitter, where there are people saying, "Oh, X22 uses GetResponse. Don't do business with him anymore." And these are people that I was paying to host and to send emails. and they both suspended the accounts. So I think we need to build something large, something big that works very well, where people can get all this information. I know like Gab is out there, but a lot of these platforms have problems. They're not fast enough. They're not advanced enough to handle what we see today, compared to, because people got used to Twitter, people got used to YouTube, people got used to Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And it's very difficult to keep up and try to build something. But I think that's what we need at this point. We need platforms like that. And I just want to make one reference. When Trump was leaving office, he said that the 25th Amendment was going to come back and haunt Joe Biden. It was zero risk to him, but it was going to come back and haunt Joe Biden. So I find that very interesting, where he had to say that, because I don't think he just says things just to say them. I think he actually says it because he knows that certain things are going to happen. And I don't think he would have said that if he didn't know about it. And I think way back when I was listening to him, he did say that there are other things at work with Biden, with Obama. And I think we're going to see things that we never thought we were going to see with the Biden administration and with what happens next. I think there's a lot of moving parts right now that we just don't know, because if we did know, those people would know and they would be able to counter them. So I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes that are going right now. And in response to the military, if there is election fraud, and I do believe that there was election fraud, and the military has been monitoring the election fraud going all the way back to 2018. If the military has been monitoring it, military intelligence, and they know of election fraud, then the military has to follow the Constitution. Not Trump, not Biden, but the Constitution. And I do believe they have this information. The other thing I want to say is that, remember, Durham was made a special counsel. Durham is still there. I think his investigation is completed. I think he has all the information. And I think Trump and the people that are working with him, I think they're waiting for the right moment to play their hand. I think they needed the crime and everything to be completed. And I think now is the time he's going to make a move with the military, with Durham, because he declassified the Crossfire hurricane information last night. Why would he wait for the last moment, the day before he was leaving his presidency, to declassify Crossfire hurricane at, I think it was 4:49 p.m.? That makes no sense unless he has something else planned, and this information will now be dumped out. Does it mean the mainstream media is going to cover it? No, but the information is declassified, and people are going to be able to see what the Obama administration and what the FBI, what the Department of Justice, and what everyone else has done. So I think there's a lot of things in motion right now, and I think we're going to see a lot of fireworks happen in the next couple of days.
All right, now Thrive Nation, on part 3 of today's epic broadcast, we are going to play for you audio from Paul Harvey, the late, great American broadcaster, the radio host, who was reaching an audience of nearly 24 million people per week during his peak. His show, the Paul Harvey News program, was carried on 1,200 radio stations and 400 American Forces Network stations and in 300 newspapers. And this is an audio the audio is titled, "If I Were the Devil," where he explains how the devil or Satan could or should attempt to destroy America. If Satan were going to destroy America, how would he do it? And I think if you listen to the words that he states, it is chillingly accurate. You will discover that it is chillingly accurate as it relates to what you're seeing during the year 2020. Despite the fact that he originally recorded this broadcast on April 3rd, 1965. This audio was recorded on April 3rd, 1965.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Wow and wow. All right, Thrive Nation, on part 4 of today's Thrive Time show in Linwood Fireside Chat, we are interviewing Ian Smith. Ian Smith is a man that I met in Washington, D.C. He was on the stage sharing an encouraging message with everybody in attendance. And Ian Smith is also a gym owner from New Jersey who's been fined $1.7 million for committing the crime of opening his businesses, for keeping his doors open, for trying to feed his family. In fact, he's now fined $15,497.76 per day. And to make things worse, he recently had his entire bank account seized by the local government for you need to hear his story, and if it can happen to Ian Smith, it can happen to all of us. So everybody out there, you need to hear the story of the co-founder of the Attilis Gym, Ian Smith. All right, Thrive Nation, it is a very special occasion, and it is always profound when we are above the ground. However, once we go outside, we're told right now we need to wear a mask. Once we go inside, we're told we need to stay 6 feet apart. We're told that we can say and can't say certain things on the media. And I find that a lot of us are saying, well, you know what? I'm willing to put up with this stuff because at least I have some money. You know, I got my PPP, my paycheck protection funding, or at least I have some savings, or at least I can live on my uncle's couch. But imagine what would happen if one day you went to the bank and all of your money was taken, and you say, where did it go? And they say, well, the bank says, well, we had to take it. They say, who had to take it? They say and then that's the intro for today's show. Ian Smith, welcome on to the Thrive Time show. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Brother, I got to make sure I clarify this. You're a gym owner in New Jersey. I think a lot of people recognize you from Tucker Carlson or from their posters in their house of really jacked Vikings. But what's the name of your gym?
I'm the co-owner of the Attila's Gym of Belmar, New Jersey.
And just give the listeners a little bit of a look into the gym or a look at it. Are you in a strip mall, or are you in a downtown area, a suburban area? Or?
Yeah, we are in just a middle America blue-collar area in a little shopping center strip mall. We're just the anchor store on the end. We're not a real fancy place. You know, normally when we do charge our members, we haven't charged our members since we initially shut down, but we're a $25 a month, no contract kind of place. You know, we're not
big?
anything fancy.
How big was the gym, Attila's gym? How big is it?
Our gym is 15,000 square feet. So we're a big facility. We're as big as your average LA Fitness in some cases, or, you know, Planet Fitness. We're just, a hometown gym. That's all.
And how long ago did you start the gym with your partner?
Frank and I bought the business in June of 2019. So we were 8 months in when COVID hit, and we're still coming up on our second year now.
Did China give you the money, or how did you get the money needed to start the gym?
Nah, that's good old American hard work. Frank and I put everything we had into the gym.
Everything
Frank has been a business owner in the area for about 25 years. He owns a small nutrition store, and I was a personal trainer in the area for about 10 years. We had crossed paths a couple years ago, and I made a small training studio in the back of the store. And then one day we had the opportunity to open a second location inside of a gym. So we did, and within a month we had bought in that gym because it was an absolute dumpster fire, but we knew that we could fix it, and we knew that we were the guys for the job. And in that 8 months before COVID, we had turned the gym around and tripled the membership.
How many hours a week do you think you invested into that gym?
From the beginning, 100 or better pretty much every week.
Every week.
Consistently from both Frank and I. Yeah, I mean, maybe every once in a while we'd have an easy week, but when we bought the place, it was in very bad condition. So there was a tremendous amount of work that needed to go into just making it a better place. There was a lot of stuff that needed to get fixed, pretty much everything. So any money that we ever earned, we put right back in, and we ran the counter, we cleaned the place, we engage with members, we fix stuff, we do it all. You know what I mean? We don't hire outside help. We were never able to afford it because we were, we kind of put all our eggs into this basket, and we were making it work. We were profitable pretty much right away. We had a huge surge of members from when we started, and we were doing okay. We were slowly building, kind of just getting to the point right when COVID hit that we were kind of ready for takeoff. We were going to start hiring employees and stuff like that, and now here we are.
So you, what day was the gym ordered to shut? If you can remember, maybe you blacked it out for emotional reasons, but do you remember when you were first told that you had to shut down your gym? When was that?
That was March 18th.
March 18th. Okay.
March 18th. Yep.
And March 18th, I'm going to read this to you now because now we are on January 21st. So you got March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. You got nine and a half months or so of our 2 weeks to pause, then to stop the spread.
Yeah.
They're 9.5 months into the 2 weeks to stop the spread. And our good friends at Johns Hopkins, I'm going to read this to you. Their article that they put out was that COVID-19 has relatively no effect on the deaths in the U.S. Turns out that the number of flu deaths is way down this year. The overall number of deaths, again, this is Johns Hopkins.
Coincidentally.
So COVID-19 has relatively no effect on the deaths in the United States. So follow me here, folks. The actual number of deaths is about like this from year 2018 to 19 to 20. It's pretty stable. But the number of flu deaths is going way down. The number of heart attack deaths is going way down.
Way down.
The number of pneumonia deaths is just way down. Now, but the number of COVID deaths is way up. Ian, what's going on?
COVID kills everything.
COVID kills everything. So, what's going on?
This was kind of our issue from the beginning. We took the shutdown seriously. I think kind of everybody did initially. We didn't know what we were looking at. I mean, granted, we weren't very happy about the idea, but it was one of those situations like, okay, well, we're doing this for the greater good. But we were very skeptical, and we spent every single day keeping up to date on all the newest information. We were reading the studies about how it was transmitted and all these other things, and the testing and what was going on. And very quickly, it just turned into a political weapon, whether it was a political weapon from the start, or whether it was opportunistic sort of advancements on behalf of politicians who wanted to get something done. This thing was taken way out of control. Nobody ever denied that it existed, but all of these things that you just mentioned and about 1,000 other examples go to show that this is not something to shut down the world over. There's far too many inconsistencies with their numbers. There's far too many inconsistencies with the metrics that they use to fix the problem. These goalposts are constantly moving. The hypocrisy and double standards of the people enforcing the regulations is just out of control. And the inconsistency between one legislature and another. I mean, we're on the border of Pennsylvania here, and there was a point in the shutdown where New Jersey gyms weren't allowed open. I mean, I can if I can throw a rock hard enough, I can hit the river. I can see Philadelphia from my rooftop.
Right.
And gyms in Pennsylvania were open, and everybody was just going over the bridge, but that's safe. So very quickly, none of it made sense, and that's why we did what we did. That's why we opened, and we said we can do it safe. We can do it better than big business. We can do it better than big government, and we have.
So let's make sure all the listeners understand this. I'm trying to establish what is, I believe, to be a fundamental base of knowledge we all need to have in order to have this conversation and understand it rightly and justly. Originally, Neil Ferguson of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute. Everybody should look that up. It's Neil Ferguson from the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute. And by the way, if you go to timetofreeamerica.com, timetofreeamerica.com, it's all right there. Neil Ferguson of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute, he says 2.2 million people might die. And a few weeks later, Dr. Deborah Birx, the Scarf Queen, gets up to the mic and says, the models were off by 25 times. Now, that would be the equivalent of me explaining to you, the listener, to you, the viewer, that my wife is 125 feet tall. 5 feet tall. That's what it means to be off by 25 times. Now, the PCR tests are supposed to test to see if you have COVID-19. Now, we've had interviews with Dr. Jim Meehan. Carrie Mullis, the founder of the PCR test, has said that the actual PCR tests are falsely calibrated. They're supposed to be at 17 to 25 cycles, 17 to 25 cycles to be accurate. That just means an amplification. Okay, so 17 to 25 CTs. So they basically are calibrated at 40 cycles. So it's like your speedometer is telling you you're driving 400 miles an hour when you're driving 7. Another way to put it is, if we had a super deadly virus and it was, in fact, super infectious, we should also have an epic number of deaths. So we have hugely inflated models that were wrong. We have now PCR tests that are inflated, they're wrong. Meanwhile, you have worked 100 hours a week, every week, you and your partner, putting every single dime into your business to save it. And you said, okay, listen, much like the colonists who first came over here on the pilgrims that came over here, we can't take 2 weeks to pause. Think about that, folks. The pilgrims, they could not have taken 2 weeks to pause and sat around waiting for a government check. They would have died of starvation. They had to feed themselves. So you, just like the pilgrims, you said, you know what, I'm going to be resourceful. I'm going to be an American. I'm not going to force people to work out at the gym. If they want to come at your own risk, but we're going to open the door. When did you first start getting fines?
So a very, very brief timeline of what happened is we opened in May, 2 months to the day. Immediately we began receiving summons. We got, at this point, we have upwards of 80 between the two of us. Our members started getting summons. One of our members was arrested. Then they stopped with that. We got a health department shutdown.
One of your members was arrested?
One of our members was arrested.
What was he arrested for?
Refusing to give his name.
He
was quickly released. But actually, a funny fact is, out of all the people arrested during COVID for protests, the only people whose charges have not got dropped are the ones associated with Attila's Jim Belmar. All other protests that were against COVID restrictions got dropped. So you have a guy, he comes to work out. He's coming to pump it up. He's probably, working on his abs. He's doing the core. He's got the shoulders. He's trying to get in shape. And turns out
one of the comorbidities that causes alleged death from COVID-19 is obesity, which happens to be the number one. Check it out, folks. It's the number one health issue in America today is obesity. So it turns out he's going to the gym to fight obesity, to fight a comorbidity, to stay in shape. He's guilty of not stating his name. Interesting. So he gets arrested. Continue.
So at that point, we got a health department shut down. We ignored it. Then we had a court order to shut down in which they changed the locks on our building. We were out for a little while. We filed a lawsuit on behalf of Rock Bottom Nutrition, which is a company that we have inside here. It's the nutrition store, which is an essential business. We got our doors back open. We agreed to play nicely for a little bit, and we started pulling about 40,000 pounds worth of equipment outside of the parking lot every day in the middle of June. And we did that so that we could have our day in court. Long story short, our day in court never came. We were kicked out of federal court with this sort of sneaky loophole that we had criminal charges in the state, and that the federal court couldn't hear the case until those were resolved. That would take upwards of a year. So it's just a way for them to abstain from the case. So we said, all right, fine, we're opening it up back inside, and we did. We did on July 4th because we thought that would be a good day to get arrested. Turns out that didn't happen. And then we were held in contempt of court July 24th. So that's the fine started in August, and we were fined a couple random days in August. They were fining us. It wasn't like consecutive. Then they got another court order, and they were going to come barricade our doors. Well, they barricaded them once. We kicked them in. They were going to put up a steel barricade. We became affiliated with Rick Maida for Senate and deemed ourselves a political location, which operates outside of all executive orders, oddly enough. And then the fines stopped temporarily. When they reopened the gyms in Jersey in September, they started fining us on a daily basis off of that same fine and off of that same court order, but not for being open. It's because we refused to put a mask mandate in place.
Now, I talked to a woman in Oklahoma whose son was working out while wearing a mask, and it turns out when you rebreathe the air. So when you're working out, again, I'm not a fitness pro, obviously, but let me just folks work with me on this. So I'm going to do 3 sets of 8 real quick, if it's okay. 3 sets of 8. I'm going to do some 30-pound curls. Got my shoulders back, got good form. I'm going to contract the muscle. I'm just now. If I got a mask on, it's kind of like, and all of a sudden I start to sound like Darth Vader. And I'm trying to squeeze, and then I'm like, and I have a spotter, and the spotter's like, "Do you need help?" And I'm going, and he can't hear me because he can't hear me. He's, "Do you need help?" And I go, I don't know what you're saying. He doesn't know what I'm saying. I don't know what he's saying. I'm going, "Help me!" And all of a sudden, somehow, I can't breathe. No one can hear each other. I can't imagine what could go wrong if you're wearing a mask while working out. But this lady told me her son literally had a collapsed lung or something crazy happened. He passed out. So I guess he was doing bench press, and he couldn't breathe.
There's all sorts of negative side effects of wearing masks or cloth face coverings, and it's insane that they actually write it into the executive orders that open the gyms that you have to put a cloth face covering on. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. During any intense aerobic and anaerobic activity, you should not be constricting your airways at all, especially if you're going to get sweaty. It's just going to get wet. You're going to essentially waterboard yourself. Not to mention you're at a higher risk for developing, it's true, bacterial pneumonia. There's all sorts of studies coming out now that's linking like gum disease and issues sort of in and around your mouth because of it. Not to mention the fact that it's just, it's about the most unnatural thing you could possibly do. Your body is designed in a very specific manner for a very specific reason. You breathe into your nose because it's a filtration system, and you exhale out through your mouth to push it far away from you. You don't want to hold it in close and then rebreathe it.
Dude, listen to this, dude. This will blow your mind, bro. Listen, I'm going into the gym where I believe, and this might just be me exaggerating and putting what I believe to be generalities on gym people. But in the gym, some people do say bro, and they say dude. So I'm just going to go there. I'm going to the gym. Bro, dude, this is gross. I went into a local restaurant the other day to order something, and I watched a man eat a sandwich, takes a bite, puts the mask back up, chews. No. Then he takes some French fries in, puts the mask back, and I start watching. He's got a good rotation. You got, but I mean, seriously, he's been doing this a while now. So he's got fry, mask down, up, down, up. He's got to rotate, and I'm thinking, wow, that's good rotation. I mean, you got to have been doing this for a while. I mean,
as if he's too quick for the virus. Like every time the virus goes, he's like, gotcha.
Right, and in Oklahoma, because we realized that the virus comes out at 11:01, so you shut down the bars at 11:01 because it's a nighttime virus, and you stay 6 feet apart because the virus can't go 7 feet, and it's super important that you wear a mask while standing up because in a restaurant that's a tall virus, it will get you. But if you sit down, you can take it off. But this guy
like
mastered.
Smoke.
Yes.
When you're in a smoky room, you have to stay.
This guy mastered the art, though. He put the fry in, he pulls the mask down. I'm just like, and I'm thinking this. I mean, seriously, it was like one of those videos that you want to put on YouTube where someone has mastered something so good because it was like a rotation. And I'm like, this guy, it's amazing. So he's not going to waterboard himself because he's got it figured out. But the average person would struggle to do curls or push-ups or anything. So anyway, so you're now your gym's open, and I understand you just the bank seized the money out of your account. They came in with the claw of government and. Who took your money? How much did they take?
So we've got a ton of fines, but we're actually in the process of ongoing litigation in the matter of the fines because they're unconstitutional, they're oppressive, and they're just absolutely out of control. So we have ongoing litigation and appeals process with that, as well as ongoing litigation in 3 other matters. The money that is in the bank account is entirely from donations and t-shirt sales. We don't charge our members. We haven't charged since we originally shut down. This is money that was collected from GoFundMe or people sort of supporting us by buying t-shirts. That is strictly of use to stay open, and a majority of that goes to our legal bills. So they took it right in the middle of that. Happened last Wednesday. Frank came in the morning like he always does. He's going through his morning routine of checking things, make sure everything's good. Opens the bank account, and there's $0 in there. And it says New Jersey state execution of $165,000, something like that. So emptied it out to the very last penny. So we call the bank and ask what happened. And it was an execution on behalf of the Mercer County Sheriffs on behalf of Judith Persicelli. Judith Persicelli is the head of the health department here in New Jersey, the one who's also responsible for about 7,500 deaths in long-term care facilities because of her poor judgment. Taking that money because she's the one who has the health department shut down against us. So that's kind of where all of our legal issues stem from, is that health department. So she's essentially suing us.
So the health department, again, who seized the money? I just want to make sure I'm following. Who seized the money?
The sheriffs have seized the money.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And
but the bank has informed us that the sheriffs don't have the money, but the money is in possession of the bank, but we can't use it. So they've essentially moved it to another account until the legal battle is settled. However, the money is for the legal battle, which is ongoing. So it's
how much money did they seize?
In total, $173,000.
173. Well, at least it wasn't 174. That's a positive. That's good.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm sure if they could have, they would have left some money, but it seems like they needed it all.
So let me get this right. You have a gym in New Jersey. You co-owned it. You work 100 hours a week to start it, to grow it, to fix it, to repair it, to refurbish the business. You bought a business. You put your life into it, your energy, your time, your beard, the whole thing. And then the government then seized $173,000, all of your illegal defense funds. And then how are you supposed to feed yourself?
I guess I should wait for the next stimulus check. I'm not really sure. We've been told that we weren't allowed to be in business long ago, and we've stayed in business since. And we're fortunate that we can fight this battle because we have families that support us. Frank has a family and I have a family, and we're able to take up the fight because we are fighting for something much bigger than just a gym. We're able to fight for everybody and for all small businesses because the scope of our lawsuit is that big. It would limit these type of powers. So, I don't know how they expect us to eat. We figure out a way because one thing I'll never do is rely on government for anything.
Amen. Now, you have been fined $1.7 million too?
So the fines are $15,497.76 per day.
How much per day?
And that is $15,497.76 per day, for every day that we do not mandate masks.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to do this. I'm sorry to do this too. I'm typing this on the show notes, and our listeners, the first time they heard it, they're like, "Did he just say $1,500?" And we want to think it's a per week. We want to think it's per month. We're trying to like, that's one more time. What's that number per day, sir?
$15,497.76 per day. For a small business that was open less than a year before COVID hit, hasn't charged its members since April 1st. That is the number that they came up with as a reasonable number, which again, this is why we're fighting it in court. The language of the law when talking about fining, a business or an entity for not following a court order, it says it's supposed to be a quote punitive sting. And I think that $15,497.76 per day is far from a punitive sting as it can get.
Yeah, it's more of a Charlie horse that involves a sword slicing through your leg. I mean, it's like a amputation is how I would. That's not a sting.
It's essentially a death blow to the business if we were to ever have to pay that.
Now, okay, so what I want to do is I want to leave the listeners with some encouragement, but there's a balance I'm trying to strike here. I feel really bad for your business, and I watched your I'm not a guy who watches things and cries. When I did watch Braveheart, I cried, and when I watched your first interview with Tucker, I cried for you, and I cried for you, and I cried for me, and I cried for we, because I recognize this is happening to you. And people are saying, "Oh, it's just in New Jersey." No, it's everywhere. This is happening. And I was kind of like, the day the music died, the American Pie. It was like the day that American commerce died. So I want to leave the listeners with some encouragement, but I also want to share the reality of it. So if you could share, what do you think is going to happen in the future? Like, if you had to say, in the next 60 days, you think this is going to happen, or have you had those thoughts? Do you even have those thoughts?
We take this battle one day at a time. We've put our heart and soul into this over the past 8 months, and it has been obviously the most tiresome and difficult task we've ever taken up. However, we have complete faith that we're on the right side of this. And no matter what it takes, we'll get to the end to prove that. I wouldn't take up something that I didn't believe in. I wouldn't go this far. Our lives have essentially been turned upside down, inside out, and just completely changed, in so many ways. But knowing that if you gave us both the chance to do it again, we would, because we truly believe in what we're doing. 60 days, will that be the end of it? I don't think so. Legal battles tend to be long and nasty. And right now, I think things are very, very uncertain. But I think that what's important is people are really starting to wake up to the effects of what all this has on just life in general, not just business, because business is just one part of life. But when you kneecap the middle class in the way that COVID did, and kneecap small business in the way that COVID did, there's a lot of unintended side effects of that. And I think people are really starting to feel them, and more now than ever. We have so much support in what we're doing, but then there's so much support around the country for small businesses and the ones that have been able to stand through this. And I think that's something that just truly needs to continue. And what we need to start doing as a collective is more internalized economics, where we're focusing on keeping money in communities, keeping money in small businesses, going out of our way to be a patron of a small business instead of taking the easier route and shopping big box and getting everything delivered to your house on Amazon, because that's how you revitalize the economy. The government's not going to do it. No policy that Joe Biden is going to enact is going to magically wave a wand and fix all of this. Not that I think that he would want to anyway. So I think it's really up to us. And I think people are starting to realize that, and that's just a trend that needs to continue forward. And we can absolutely turn this around.
I would say this, folks. If I was communist China and I wanted to destroy America, and I didn't have a soul, if I wasn't a Christian, if I wasn't a man of faith, if I literally just said, what is the best way to destroy America? Let me tell you what I'd do. I'd make a bioweapon that really isn't that dangerous. And then I would have the media scare you with models that were 25 times wrong. They're off by 25 times. Then I would have PCR tests to be used that inflate the number of cases to keep it going. And then I would force people to be closed, and I would force people to have debates about whether it's safe or not, so it creates tension. And so we don't have a common enemy in China. We would begin fighting against each other. And then I would keep every business locked down, shut down. I would have key leaders that would be in on the gig that would keep towns and cities locked down, masked up, schools shuttered, churches closed, praise and worship banned. I'd keep people from connecting in communities and bars and restaurants, from talking and discussing. And then when they can't meet in person, I would ban them from communicating online. I would censor everything. That's what I would do if I was trying to eat the heart out of America. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing happen right now. But I do believe we're going to win this thing. But what we need to do, folks, is we got to stand and support great people like you, Ian. And I wouldn't say great like you're, like you're professing to be this great guy. I'm just saying you are putting country first right now. You're fighting for the country. You understand this is a bigger thing than you are. If people want to support you in any way, can they do that at this point, or where can they do that, sir?
Yeah. So one of the biggest forms of support is actually non-financial. And I always like to stress that. Our strongest and most powerful weapon in this fight has been the exposure, both in the media and on social media and just socially in general. So just being able to connect with us and share our stuff is incredibly powerful. We're on pretty much every platform. Most of the news comes through Ian Smith Fitness. And that is Instagram, Twitter, anything like that. I'm also on Gab. And then Attila's Jim Belmar is the secondary or the backup. So we put out news whenever we have news.
Yeah.
And on there, on both of those profiles is the link to our website, which is www.theattilasgym.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's ATILIS. And right on the website, there's two options. There's a little shop. We pay our bills by selling t-shirts, and we sell a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome, and people get to get something out of their contribution to us.
Got it.
And the shirts have actually become like a conversation piece. Like if you see somebody who has one, you kind of know they're on the same wavelength as you.
What does the shirt say?
It says Belmar for everybody.
Okay,
and then on the back of the shirt, it has the Attilas logo.
Yeah.
And then the preamble of the Constitution.
Well, brother, I appreciate you again. You fighting for this country. I appreciate the beard. If I grow a beard, it looks like Shaggy from Scooby Doo. So I appreciate a good beard when I see one. So well done on the beard. Are you a married guy? Are you a single guy? What are you? You have a family?
No, I'm not married, but I'm not single. I have a girlfriend and a son at home. And
well, much love to your family too, brother. I appreciate you. We'll be praying for you here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all around the Thrive Nation.
Thank you.
I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to pick a side. It's time for us to decide, are the First Amendment rights that we have as Americans worth fighting for? Or are we okay with letting them just slip away? And now, without any further ado, we like to end each and every show with a boom, because boom stands for big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom!
If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. So just as I say, we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around. We aren't going to let any injunction turn us around.
Gotta pick a side, man, it's do or die. Trying to stay up in the middle, man, that's suicide. Be hot or be cold, what's it gonna be? Spoil me with loyalty, it's all I wanna see. If you ain't saying nothing, then you saying something. What you see is what you get, man, I ain't never frontin'. I see your problem, I'm lazy, cause I ain't never running. Opposition passing it off, cause they ain't never won it. Come on, time to say goodbye, it is you and I.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a a side, it's do or die.
Time to pick a side, homie, do or die.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die. No mess, no backs for me. Both middle fingers up for Dr. G. I'm never gonna listen to his latest pitch or the scarf queen. His Dr. Brooks is up. I'm an American with the First Amendment and the Second Amendment to defend it. You want our guns? Well, come and take it. Hope you're good at dodging bullets and you're praying. The year 2020, the year of perfect vision. The time when you and I have to make a decision. Open up your minds like Hunter's laptop. But when you see corruption, this time it's gotta stop. Back the police, say no to the beast. No to the mask, take no vaccine. Back the police, say no to the beast. No to the mask, take no vaccine.
Let's say goodbye, it is you and I.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
Time to pick a side, homie, do or die.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
If you compromise, it'll multiply. Treat you like a doormat, treat you speak your mind. Ain't hard to find, you must be blind if you can't see the sign. I got a spine, I won't never let them take what's mine. Time to unify, I'm talking you and I. If you ain't riding for the cause, better move aside. Sit back, watch me work, I'ma do it right. Time for you to pick a side, it's looking like a do or die. Time to say goodbye, it is you and I.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
Time to pick a side, homie, do or die.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
Our country will never be a socialist country. We're not going to let it happen.
And that is another lyrical miracle on the Thrive Time Show.